One Piece Blades of Fire Chapter 261 to 280. Chapter 261 The Rescue of Hope. The moment he walked out, the golden light on the dragon's head and the scales on his body shone everywhere, and the sky returned to normal in an instant. And the black cloud and mist on the golden dragon disappeared instantly under the irradiation, leaving only the golden body and the dragon's body covering the whole field. A pair of dragon horns on the huge head has a pillar in the field. I don't know how thick. Zhang Yang and others on the side only had the size of a scale. Facing such a magnificent real dragon, Zhang Yang couldn't help but kneel. Lord Dragon, please bless me to make money and make money every year. I will definitely burn you a good incense. Kakashi was very puzzled when he saw Zhang Yang being so submissive to the dragon. Although the dragon looked very powerful, according to his character, he would not kneel and pray to a creature. So he said to Zhang Yang, "Zhang Yang, do you know this thing?" Zhang Yang got angry all of a sudden and shouted at Kakashi. "If you don't have anything, please give it to me quickly, this is the dragon that protects mankind." Immediately followed by Jinlong Road. "You don't remember the villain, he doesn't know who you are. Please don't care, ha ha ha." Even Naiko could see that Zhang Yang was laughing embarrassingly, while Kakashi on the side poked at Long 3 times, which frightened Zhang Yang and hurriedly said to Kakashi, "You TMD do it on purpose. Ah, didn't you tell me to pee? And what does TMD mean?" The golden dragon on one side suddenly gave off a strong airflow, and the 3 of them almost failed to stand on their heels, and the weather seemed to get worse with the dragon's mood. Of the 3, only Zhang Yang knew that once Long was angry or happy, it was all related to the weather. Now that he knew that Long was already angry, he quickly stepped forward and apologized. "Don't be angry, let me ask you first, are you here for us?" Long lowered his arrogant head, lowered his head to look at the human who was not as big as his own eyes, sniffed at Zhang Yang again, and then slowly raised his head to look at Zhang Yang. And Zhang Yang looked at Long's anger and self-prestige, and swallowed, afraid that it would suddenly use some trick to destroy himself and the 2 behind him. "You actually smell of time and space." Hearing Long speak, Zhang Yang felt a little relieved in his heart, but the term Long suddenly came up with, he was instantly stunned. What kind of time and space taste? When Kakashi saw that the dragon was not malicious, he asked Naiko to step back and walked to Zhang Yang's side, facing Long Dao. "Is this door going to beat you?" When Zhang Yang was still thinking about what to say, Kakashi said bluntly to the dragon. Zhang Yang felt that he had fallen into the trap of the pig teammates, and Zhang Yang, who was facing Kakashi Nuzui, heard the dragon's reply. "That's right. A more appropriate explanation is to subdue me." Zhang Yang was stunned in an instant. Want to fight a dragon? But he continued to listen to what it said next, so he followed. "As if you have something to say." Long looked at Zhang Yang, not knowing what his expression was, then continued. "I was originally created by chaos, and then I was locked in this endless reincarnation time and space, until one day, I figured that someone from another world will come to subdue me, and then take me back to the original world." Kakashi glanced at Zhang Yang, and after hearing Long finished speaking, he continued to ask. "Then you are talking about Zhang Yang himself?" "Yes, exactly." This made Zhang Yang messy in an instant. "Do you want to defeat this dragon and conquer it?" What a joke, and Kakashi on the side is very happy to face Zhang Yang. "Haha, this is cheap, you kid." Zhang Yang looked at Kakashi Road in confusion. "What do you mean? What is cheap?" Kakashi didn't answer Zhang Yang, but said to the dragon calmly. "In other words, you have to be defeated by him alone." Long nodded. Zhang Yang was more messy, and at this time Kakashi explained to Zhang Yang with a smile. "This is a psychic beast. Although its origin is unknown, it is very powerful. Zhang Yang, go." After Kakashi finished speaking, he pushed Zhang Yang forward, and Zhang Yang was caught off guard in the Colosseum surrounded by dragons. Kakashi stepped back with a smirk and stopped Naiko from going forward. And Naiko was very puzzled. "Kakashi-senpai, why?" "Look, Zhangyang will be fine, he is going to subdue that psychic beast now. Hearing Kakashi's statement, Naiko couldn't help but open her mouth wide. Such a big psychic beast and looked very powerful, but Kakashi beside him believed him, and Naiko had to wait quietly for Zhangyang's return. I understand, now you can only stay in my body and escape by means of a psychic beast, right? Well, that's right. It turns out that Jinlong just shared a little of his knowledge and memory with Zhangyang at the moment he came into contact with Zhangyang, and Zhangyang understood the meaning. Then am I going to beat you now? Well, close your eyes, you have to beat me in your heart. After listening to Zhangyang, he sat cross-legged on the ground, his mind entered a state of meditation, and Jinlong also slowly approached Zhangyang. Naiko had a dragon on the side who wanted to eat Zhangyang, broke free from Kakashi and stepped forward to save Zhangyang, and then something miraculous happened. The dragon slowly got into Zhangyang's body, passing through the human body like a phantom, but Zhangyang didn't feel any pain. Naiko and Kakashi, who stopped her, stood there and watched it. It was as big as 3 football fields. All the dragons entered the body of Zhangyang sitting cross-legged on the ground. The two also knew that they couldn't disturb him now, so they sat down quietly and looked at Zhangyang while resting, but Zhangyang in the meditation was a little uncomfortable. The dragon created a large space in Zhangyang's mind, flying around with the roar of the dragon, while Zhangyang watched the dragon at a loss, and the two outside heard Zhangyang's body. There were bursts of dragon chants, and Kakashi found that there was a hint of excitement and anxiety in this voice. Hey, I said, what the hell do you want me to do? Zhangyang watched the dragon scurrying around, and did not dare to go up to stop it, so he asked loudly from the bottom. Sure enough, your body is a good container. I want to occupy your body. Are you okay with it? As soon as Zhangyang heard the words, the fire immediately came up and shouted at the dragon. I don't mind you XX. I won't let you in, so get out of here. After speaking, a burst of black fire from Zhangyang's body began to disperse towards the sky, and the entire sky instantly became pitch black. Chapter 262 The sky suddenly exploded with thunder, and Kakashi and Naiko were both startled by the thunder. At this time, Naiko was a little scared, but Kakashi, who was careful, discovered one thing. The place where the thunder struck was just above Zhangyang. Fog gathers clouds. At this time, Naiko suddenly exclaimed. Kakashi watched Naiko point to a place, and when he was about to look, he only heard, crack. At the place where Zhangyang was sitting, there was an extremely fast thunder light around, and when Kakashi looked at it, only the sound and the ground that was hit by the lightning and turned into coke were left. Kakashi-senpai, pull him over. Okay. Kakashi observed the cloud that thundered towards Zhangyang in the sky, then looked at Zhangyang's position, and continued. Don't worry, that cloud won't really hurt Zhangyang, because this was made by that dragon, and that dragon is still in Zhangyang's body, so it's impossible to harm yourself, so just watch it with peace of mind. Zhangyang will definitely conquer this guy. Naiko couldn't say anything. After all, she didn't know as much as Kakashi. Since Kakashi was so sure, Naiko simply sat down and watched the changes in Zhangyang, but she still couldn't let go of that peace in her heart. Stone. Humans. How dare you openly yell at me, how daring. Zhangyang's black flames were completely washed away by the golden light on the dragon's body, and the dragon's huge body was also circling around at this time. Zhangyang found that his black flames were suppressed by the light from the golden scales on the dragon's body. And suddenly understood how big the gap between himself and the dragon is. The light on one scale can make the Amaterasu flames that everyone smelled change disappear completely, which shows how powerful this dragon is. Coiled in the air and then slowly landed on the ground, the dragon didn't seem very satisfied with the way Zhangyang spoke to himself. His face was arrogant, his bluff mouth was full of fangs, and the dragon's whiskers shook his mouth. The pendulum, like an energetic snake, saw it float down by itself, and Zhangyang naturally refused to give in. What do you mean? You are so arrogant when you occupy someone else's body. Ha ha ha, human beings are human beings, In short, it is a rule, the strong is king. I have lived for hundreds of millions of years, and I have never seen anyone as arrogant as you. Zhang Yang knew for a long time that it must have lived a long time, but he didn't expect it to live for hundreds of millions of years, and when Zhang Yang's appearance did not show shock, Long seemed to sense Zhang Yang's shock, so he sneered. Hee, human, although you are my host, but I don't think you have the ability to make me surrender, so you still. Or give your body to you. I think you are just wishful thinking. How would you know how many brushes I have if you don't try? Long sneered, and sighed in his heart that he had met a creature that was not only the height of the sky and the earth, but also the weakest human being in the race for hundreds of millions of years, which made the dragon disdain, and then a golden dragon with a trace of thunder and lightning claws descended from the sky towards Zhang Yang. Press away. And Zhang Yang is not a vegetarian, but when he wanted to move, he found that his body was numb, and he couldn't use any strength at all. He raised his head and looked at the terrifying golden dragon claws that were about to occupy a piece of the sky. Zhang Yang found a trace of lightning. Wrap around. It turned out that it had already powered on me before it came down, but I didn't notice it because I didn't move. I didn't expect this dragon to understand the characteristics of this electricity so well. This is really bad. Zhang Yang thought in his heart, but his body was still moving hard. The dragon's sharp claws already covered a quarter of Zhang Yang's space in the sky, and Zhang Yang was in the middle, so even if he was moving at his usual speed it is impossible to escape from this oppressive dragon claw. Boom! Click! Before Zhang Yang escaped from the covered ground, he was smashed into a big hole by sharp claws that fell from the sky, and the surrounding stones were instantly crushed, forming a ground crack like a spider web, and there were different clicking sounds near the crack. Humans are human beings. Forcibly disobeying my words is a dead end. The dragon slowly lifted its claws and saw an oval-shaped black flame the size of a human in the center of the crack. The dragon's front palm rested on the ground, its head was lowered, and a mouthful of golden light was released from its mouth, hitting the black flame in the middle. Logically speaking, as soon as the golden light came out, the black flames should all be idle. But what is incredible is that after the golden breath hit the protective cover of the black flame, the two had a strong repulsion, just like the oil that boiled more than 1,000 degrees was poured by a cold water going up. The scene is like a spectacular scene of oil and water magnified countless times. I didn't expect to be able to take this blow from me, so what about this one? Long watched with interest as the golden air in front of him was almost dissipated by the black flame, so he slapped his forefoot on the ground, and the dragon's body instantly turned red. Zhang Yang in the black flame naturally saw this scene, gritted his teeth and insisted on the aftermath. At the same time of the impact, he complained in his heart. It is rumored that dragons do change color and weather because of anger, but I didn't expect it to change like this. Like Ultraman, it needs certain moves to change. It's really long eyes. After seeing the dragon turning red, he opened his mouth to the sky and Zhang Yang saw the dragon like this, knowing that it was about to spray something out, and said in his heart. It should be spitting fire. Anyway, labor and capital have the aura of protagonists. When the dragon shook his head and leaned down, there seemed to be a flame burning in his closed mouth. Zhang Yang's heart tightened, and the dragon opened his mouth at once, and the hot flames and golden rays of light were facing each other, a thin black flame shield that looks vulnerable. The impact this time was more violent than the previous one, and the protective cover was smashed to pieces at the moment of contact. Long looked at the protective cover that had vanished in front of him, and when nothing remained in the impacted flames, he was satisfied. Get ready to close the spouting mouth. Just this little strength. It's not enough for me to stick between my teeth. Long used sound transmission to spread in the entire consciousness space, and at this time it found a person standing slowly inside the flame. Long looked at it and found that it was Zhang Yang, and at this time he was wearing some clothes. Other places it was intact, what Long Xin was looking forward to. Hee, that's interesting. So it increased the flame, opened its mouth even wider, and the flames sprayed out like a fire extinguisher, drowned Zhang Yang's entire body. A loud voice. Chapter 263 _ Is this your strength? Show your strength. Let me see how your 100 million-year-old overlord survives. This hockey cry, the dragon can't help but stunned. I didn't expect this kid to have so many tricks. According to common sense, whether it is a robot or any powerful monsters living in this land, even if he accepts it just now, he barely died, and after receiving such a big impact, he will definitely be wiped out. I didn't expect this kid to still be alive, which made Long's self-confidence a little shaken. At this moment, the fire that the dragon spewed out suddenly disappeared. Long was shocked, closed his mouth, and looked at this human being who seemed to be digesting something. There was surprise and hesitation in his eyes, while Zhang Yang was slow with his hands. Slowly put it down, and then raised his right hand, only to see a black flame burning in his hand. When Long saw that the flame was not the same, he wondered why he wanted to make this flame out. Thank you, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be able to get such good chakras and new types of flames. On Zhang Yang's other hand, a golden flame ignited. He slowly fused the palms of the two flames together, and the contact between the two produced a great explosion sound and flame splash. But after seeing the golden flame, Long immediately understood why Zhang Yang could survive in his own flame unscathed, and why the flame he made suddenly disappeared, so he said with some excitement. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect human beings to take my flames and use them for their own use. Boy, you are one of the most powerful people I have ever met. You are qualified to know my name, listen carefully. After Zhang Yang fused the two, a dimensional fluctuation was generated, and when he heard the dragon say this, he subsided the two flames and listened to it seriously. I am the overlord of chaos, Folang. This is what Zhang Yang thought in his heart when he heard the name at this time. The name is strange. Seeing the helpless look on Zhang Yang's face, not being stunned or slightly surprised as he imagined, Long was full of displeasure and said towards Zhang Yang. You are now qualified to challenge me. If you can defeat me, I can sign a contract with you. Zhang Yang put away his helpless look, and watched the dragon in front of him begin to seriously open up and slowly let two flames of black and gold ignite in his hands. The dragon didn't dare to be careless. The mouth made a huge dragon whistle towards Zhang Yang. And the destructive power of the sound is even stronger than the flame just now. Before the sound came, Zhang Yang's eardrums were already greatly affected, and the dragon's hair and beards were also stretched behind him, and a domineering came spontaneously. The two people on the edge of the field were staring wide-eyed at Zhang Yang's changes. The body suddenly turned into a golden flame and merged with the black flame. The thunder and lightning in the sky did not stop after that, and slashed everywhere around Zhang Yang. It is smashed, and the black coke around it is like a black lotus leaf, offering Zhang Yang in the middle. Kakashi-senpai, is this? Naiko looked at Kakashi puzzled and asked, and Kakashi also watched the battle in front of him seriously. For a long time, the corners of his mouth slowly rose without turning his head. This kid Zhang Yang is fighting that dragon. Now it seems that the dragon didn't take advantage of it, so he chops everywhere, but he just doesn't dare to hit Zhang Yang's body, otherwise he will be finished. Naiko heard that Zhang Yang was okay for the time being, and the stone in her heart was half put down, so she couldn't help but want to go up to wipe Zhang Yang's sweat. Kakashi saw Naiko wanting to go over, and hurriedly grabbed Naiko, and Naiko turned around and asked. Senior Kakashi, why? Before he finished speaking, the thunder and lightning over there seemed to have found a target to vent, and they all slashed towards the position where Naiko had just stood. Fortunately, Kakashi had already pulled her over before again, and the ground and surroundings in front of him instantly there was an explosion, and signs of thunder and lightning were left on the wall. Kakashi-senpai, thank you for saving me again, sorry, I didn't mean to. Haha, it's fine if you're okay, you'd better stay at ease, Zhang Yang will definitely defeat that monster. Naiko also nodded affirmatively to Kakashi. She also believed that Zhang Yang would definitely defeat the dragon. At this time, Kakashi continued to Naiko. Also, just call me Kakashi, otherwise it's too much trouble, or some other nickname. Wait, no, Zhang Yang will kill me, haha. Haha, Kakashi-senpai, You are really joking. Let's call you that. I don't think it's troublesome. Because of Kakashi's jokes, Naiko was relieved a lot from this tense atmosphere, and this is Kakashi's method. Otherwise Naiko will be swayed by this tension and cannot be independent after seeing what happened to Jong Young. If you think and listen to your own words, then you will really be powerless. It had only been a day at the entrance of the cave, and in the Hokage conference room outside the trial ground, Jiraiya and Tsunade had just finished talking, and the guards at the door were also patrolling the other side. Jiraiya, then when do you say the next enemy attack will be? Tsunade also looked uncertainly at Jiraiya with a smile on his mouth, looking at the man in front of him, who always appeared when he needed it, and Tsunade didn't consciously want to rely on Jiraiya. Since the main focus is on consumption, there will be such battles every day until we are exhausted. If we say the fastest battle, either this evening or tomorrow morning. It's a bit difficult to handle now. The fighting force in the village is almost exhausted. Although most of the wounded are wounded, they are not lightly injured, and there will be no way to continue participating in the war for a while. On the other hand, Jiraiya nodded in affirmation of Tsunade's remarks, holding his head in his hands and thinking for a long time. There are still genin and some guards in our village. It's only enough for a few days. After that, if those people still don't retreat, our Konoha village will fall, but what? Tsunade heard what Jiraiya said earlier, and was thinking in his heart how to solve the conspiracy of the foreign ninjas in the country immediately, but when he heard that Jiraiya also had something to say, he immediately asked. We now have two paths to take. The first is to give aid to other countries. After listening to Tsunade, he felt that although this was a solution, it was still too rash. If other countries heard about the consumption of Konoha, they might join forces with the people from Anbu and the Land of Water to annex Konoha, so he asked. Road. What about the second method? Chapter 264 Premonition of Attack. Jiraiya also smiled, as if he knew that Tsunade would definitely skip that and choose the second one, and paused. The second is that we set up the formation, and we set up the formation around the village. The premise is that as few people as possible know about it, the safer it is. As long as the formation is set up, the people inside and outside will not be able to communicate with each other. Tsunade waved his hands. When the time comes, let's discuss with Nara. He is smart and can definitely find this kind of ninjutsu. Jiraiya also wanted to talk to Tsunade about the next layout. Unexpectedly, there was a sudden change outside. There was an explosion not far away, and the two also felt the heat wave and VV's shock. Turned back. It seems that the hunch is correct. It is tonight. Don't talk about it. It's important to save people. After Tsunade finished speaking, he jumped up from his seat and ran directly to the door, followed by Jiraiya. The explosion outside has awakened many people, and everyone started to put out the fire, pouring iron buckets of water on the burning house one by one, but the battle was just a drop in the bucket. Tsunade didn't say anything. He jumped into the crowd and started to instruct everyone to save people and arrange work. After watching Tsunade's back working hard below, Jiraiya also jumped to a higher place to observe the fire, and then made a seal on his hand. Road. The art of water escaping and blowing the river. I saw a huge stream of water flew over from the sky and hovered over the burned house, and Zilai also saw that the crowd had almost receded, so he grabbed it with empty hands, and the water was all scattered over the house in the sky, and the fire was extinguished instantly. The people below cheered, and then Tsunade led the medical team into the extinguished building to save people, and the guards were also searching for traces of foreign enemies. After a long time, the last person was rescued, so after Tsunade handed over the rest to Mute, he sat on a chair away from the crowd and breathed a sigh of relief, and Jiraiya also walked over to Tsunade after patrolling. Looking at Tsunade who was exhausted, Jiraiya tossed a few coins into the vending machine and came over with 2 bottles of cold beer. Yo, hard work, come and drink this. Tsunade lazily caught a cold beer thrown by Jiraiya, and his mood instantly eased a little. Thanks, Jiraiya. And Jiraiya didn't answer her. He sat next to Tsunade, opened the beer and took a few sips, and let out a long, shrill sigh, indicating that he was much more comfortable, while Tsunade didn't open it, and after playing with the beer for a long time wrote. Fortunately, it's just that someone was injured, and the murderer doesn't know who it is. Well, it's really suspicious. I checked the traces and explosions inside and outside the village, and there was no trace of the enemy or chakra reaction. The two sat on the chairs and drank the wine without saying a word. The insects around them continued to cry. Just when Jiraiya was still thinking about how to relieve the embarrassment, Tsunade suddenly exclaimed. Startled, Tsunade seemed to understand something, turned his head excitedly and said to Jiraiya. You said, is this murderer using ninjutsu from a long distance, so we can't detect it? Seeing Tsunade thinking about this, Jiraiya also felt that he was thinking too much, but considering this issue, he continued. This possibility is not ruled out, but to complete such a long-distance ninjutsu attack, it cannot be done without a strong chakra reserve and a proficient ninjutsu. Tsunade fell silent again, then continued. If you attack like this every day, wouldn't the village be destroyed by this fire soon? There is such a possibility, but it's useless for you to be in a hurry now. I will continue to call people to arm, spread the range farther, and you go to rest now. Tsunade still wanted to say something, but Jiraiya had already threw out the finished cans and turned away. A cool breeze blew past, leaving only Tsunade and his gently swaying hair. Looking at Jiraiya's direction, Tsunade murmured. For Konoha, before Kakashi and the others come out, you must not have an accident. In the trial ground on the other side, the sweat on Kakashi's forehead has slowly come out, and at this time he is holding the crazy shouting Nikodao. Nico, Zhang will be fine, don't go there. No, you lied to me, let me go. In front of the two of them, Zhang was slashing with dozens of lightning bolts without interruption, and black electric marks had already appeared on his body. One by one, lightning bolts with extremely fast speed were hitting Zhang, and Nizi also saw Zhang Yang's mouth. There was already a trace of blood in it, so it was concluded that something must have happened to Zhang Yang. And Kakashi watched these lightnings get bigger and bigger, more and more, and even spread to a place hundreds of meters away from Zhang Yang, and Zhang Yang's expression also seemed very painful, and tried hard to wrap the blood in his mouth. Blood spit out. In Zhang Yang's spiritual world, the dragon was hitting his body with various forms of electric shocks, and Zhang Yang was also beaten to the point of being unable to fight back. The dragon said proudly while hitting. How is it? Is my thunderbolt different from your thunderbolt? Just rely on you. This thunder and lightning. Less daydreaming. When Long Yi heard this, he even more frantically directed thunder and lightning to greet Zhang Yang. While thunder and lightning were raging around him, Zhang Yang did not shout seriously. Long looked at Zhang Yang's expression and continued. This lightning is completely different from the lightning that you humans use. This is the original electricity that began to form during the period of chaos, and what you humans use is just a little current from this lightning. Ha 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 ha. After Long finished speaking, seeing Zhang Yang laughing, he immediately asked inexplicably. Humans, why laugh? After Zhang Yang slowly adapted to the thunder and lightning, an unruly smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Believe it or not, I will give it back to you in the next second. Long naturally smiled up to the sky. Zhang Yang was already tied firmly by his own primitive lightning, and there were other primitive lightnings that kept whipping him. It just felt that Zhang Yang was broken by electricity and was talking nonsense. Zhang Yang saw Long smiling complacently, and began to relieve himself. Long suddenly found out that Zhang Yang had broken the lightning lock that trapped him, and all the thunderbolts that were released to rage were absorbed into his body by Zhang Yang. Long opened his eyes wide and his tone incredible. How could you? This is the original thunderbolt. Zhang Yang took a moment and came to the front of the dragon in the next second. Two black and golden flames that had been prepared for a long time burst out from the palm of his hand with thunder and lightning, and at such a close distance, the dragon was immediately struck by the combination of these three kinds of flames. The power shot out so far at once, and the scales on its body also darkened. After the fight, the dragon lying on the ground asked. Chapter 265 Conquering the Golden Dragon. Why? Zhang Yang grabbed the words. Because of what? Oh, because labor and capital are the protagonists. Long was speechless for a moment, and after Zhang Yang mastered the skills of these elements, his confidence increased greatly, and he looked at the dragon road in front of him. By the way, your name is Fu Lang. Long looked at Zhang Yang and slowly straightened up. I see, I admit you, come and sign the contract. Zhang Yang also nodded, but looked at Long and asked suspiciously. How could you fail this time? Logically speaking, you shouldn't be so weak. Fu Lang began to coil Zhang Yang in a circle, and his huge body said while coiling. I am not afraid of water and fire. There is no kinetic energy in this world to overcome me, except for the primitive thunder and lightning just now. I didn't expect you to master it, and you also use this power to hit my reverse scale, so I will be defeated by you. Quote. Zhang Yang's heart was also filled with joy. He didn't expect that his body could accept and absorb all kinds of attacks and releases and learn such power, otherwise he would be loaded here today. The two saw that the thundercloud on Zhang Yang's head dissipated in an instant, and the thunder and lightning that hit the ground suddenly disappeared without a trace, except for the black thunder and lightning raging everywhere on the ground and the publicity of the whole body like coke. There was no movement. There is none left. Publicity. Naiko rushed over as soon as she saw that the lightning was gone, and Kakashi wiped the sweat beads off his head after seeing that the lightning was gone, and slumped on the ground. Vivi Isho said. This kid, it really succeeded. After Naiko ran to Zhang Yang, she wanted to hug Zhang Yang. Unexpectedly, the lightning on Zhang Yang's body hadn't dissipated, and Naiko was bounced back by the electricity as soon as she touched it. Kakashi found that something was wrong, and hurriedly got up from the ground and ran over to check on Naiko's injury. Senior Kakashi, he is. Kakashi glanced at the large piece of skin on Naiko's hand that was blued by lightning, put down Naiko's hand, walked to Zhang Yang, and released Rachel near Zhang Yang. After the elimination, Kakashi was very puzzled, and his Rachel would not disappear automatically when the chakra was sufficient, so Kakashi, who did not believe in evil, released another Rachel. I didn't expect it to be released this time. Just when Kakashi was wondering, Zhang Yang's body changed, a golden dragon slowly appeared on his arm, and the golden light great sage, Naiko also looked over curiously and found that the majestic dragon was now on his arm, and Naiko was instantly happy with tears. At this moment, the black coke on Zhang Yang's body slowly faded away, like a shell, and Zhang Yang in front of Kakashi suddenly opened his eyes, which startled Naiko, but Naiko quickly after reacting, tears came out and he wanted to go up and hug Zhang Yang, while Zhang Yang made a pause gesture to signal Naiko to stop, and then said, Go away and I'll get this black shell off. Kakashi walked 10 meters away while protecting Naiko. Zhang Yang radiated golden light all over his body, and shattered his shell at once, revealing a fairer skin. After landing, Zhang Yang ran to Naiko, but he didn't expect that after Naiko saw Warong lost color, covering his face while running the runway. Yeah, Zhang Yang, don't do this. And Zhang Yang also stopped and looked at her suspiciously. Didn't you want to hug me just now? Why are you avoiding me now? Naiko covered her face and didn't look back, while Kakashi had already seen through everything and said to Zhang Yang. Look below you. Zhang Yang looked down and found that his pants and clothes were gone. Now he was naked, and Zhang Yang blushed. I'll just say, why is it so cold down there, hee hee. Kakashi took out the clothes in the backpack and threw them to Zhang Yang, and Zhang Yang quickly changed into this clothes. At this time, Naiko saw that Zhang Yang was wearing clothes, so she blushed and pulled the corners of Zhang Yang's clothes. And when Zhang Yang saw that it was Naiko, he also excitedly hugged the girl who was married to him. Kakashi has a sour smell of love all over the world, only I exude the unique fragrance of a single dog, smiling awkwardly at Zhang Yang. At the same time, it was already broad daylight in the village of Konoha, but the smoke of gunpowder was everywhere in the village, and the screams of killing were endless. Calls to rescue and search for injured persons. Jiraiya also began to fight non-stop against a large number of ninjas. Naruto used shadow clones to fight with a large number of enemies. Sasuke killed many enemies with shuriken and chidori, and Sakura also killed many enemies. He followed Tsunade to treat the wounded, while the trio of pigs and butterflies worked together. On the other hand, Ninki used the 64 trigrams to repel most of the enemies. Everyone was in the same situation. After one wave, there was another wave before he could catch his breath. Seeing that there were more and more enemies, and some people found that Anbu's personnel also appeared, and then shouted happily. "Look, Anbu is here to support us." Everyone saw that it was indeed Anbu's service and mask, but something unexpected happened to everyone. The person who shouted happily was wiped by the Anbu person in an instant. Everyone was afraid. At this time, there was something in their hearts. A question. Why did Anbu come to kill his own people? Some people thought that Anbu's people had killed the wrong people. Unexpectedly, Anbu's people caught a Konoha guard and started to slaughter. Konoha's guard immediately fled the battle as if seeing a ghost. In the case of scoring points, Anbu was suddenly added, and a lot of people ran away. And Naruto and the others also saw this scene, and they couldn't help but start to feel a little scared. At this time, Jirai also took Tsunade and said to everyone, "Run to the trial ground. In this way, many people in Konoha village will die." And Tsunade also arranged for the medical team to go first, and then attracted people from Anbu to chase him. Jiraiya and others followed suit and led all the enemies to the trial ground, although he did not know what Jiraiya was doing there. But Tsunade felt that he could choose to trust him at any time. Seeing Hokage gone, everyone followed, and Naruto also released a shadow clone to attract several waves of enemies to follow. At the same time, the three of Jongyang were waiting for Kakashi's reply. Kakashi was sitting on the ground at this time. Jongyang pulled Naiko and did not dare to disturb him, because at this time Kakashi was passing through with Jiraiya. The brain waves contacted, and after a while, Kakashi stood up seriously and faced Jongyang Dao. Chapter 266 The Enemy of Unity. The enemy has attacked Konoha village, and now Jiraiya is leading the enemy here. They suffered heavy losses. We must go out and fight them immediately. After listening, Jongyang nodded, then closed his eyes and entered his spiritual realm. He saw Fo Lang, who had signed a contract with him, was quietly coiling on the ground. When he saw Jongyang coming, he just raised his head and asked, "Jongyang, are you here to ask me how I got out?" "Well, yes, we have to go out now." I saw Fo Lang approach Jongyang and heard the Dao. "You have a taste for time. Logically speaking, you should go out more easily than me." Jongyang was greatly puzzled. "What do you mean? Why would I ask you if I could go out?" I saw Fo Lang laughing at Isho, and then gently exhaled at Jongyang. This breath immediately melted into Jongyang's head, and Jongyang's mind at this time appeared in his mind how to use time-space ninjutsu. After knowing the method that he learned in an instant, Jongyang clamored for Fo Lang to pass all the ninjutsu to himself using the method just now, and Fo Lang also shook his head and said, "This is impossible. There is no such shortcut to learn things. I just woke up the usage method in your head, instead of teaching you anything." "Oh tilde, that's what it is." Fo Lang went back to his original position and continued to sleep, while Jongyang came out of the spiritual world contentedly. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the urgent eyes of the two, and Jongyang stood up happily and said, "It has told me the way, let's go now." Kakashi nodded solemnly, so Jongyang pulled Naiko along and said loudly, "Ninjutsu sends labor and capital out." Jongyang couldn't hold back when his voice fell. He didn't expect this random name to be this. The three suddenly turned into a ray of light and flew into the sky. Ah! I saw that another guard in front of Jiraiya was killed, and Jiraiya flew over with a shuriken, killing the opponent, but there were a lot of people around Jiraiya, and behind Jiraiya. Except for some genin, Naruto and Tsunade, Jiraiya at this time smiled bitterly. "Kakashi, why haven't you come yet?" At this moment, the enemy suddenly stopped attacking, and there was a way out of the enemy pile. When Jiraiya and others looked at them, they hated their teeth, because the three people who came out were Danzang and the Land of Water. The Elder and Orochimaru came out together, and Danzo Road stood in the middle at this time. Surrender now, let me be Hokage, I can let you all survive, otherwise don't blame me for not thinking about the past. Tsunade shot back. Having someone like you as Hokage, I think you are daydreaming. And Orochimaru also said hello. Long time no see, Jiraiya, Tsunade. Jiraiya saw Orochimaru, and his face slightly improved. Why do you want to help this guy who was against us back then? Have you lost your nature? Hearing Jiraiya finished speaking, Orochimaru laughed and then licked his tongue. This move shocked Naruto and Sakura behind him. Naruto hid directly behind Tsunade. And Orochimaru also smiled and continued. Jiraiya, you and I have different positions, you naturally don't know my thoughts. Haha, as long as I defeat you and devour you, I can complete my final plan. Tsunade stood up and shouted at Orochimaru. Do you really want this? Orochimaru nodded undeniably, and the elder next to him seemed impatient and waved to the person behind him. This is the end of the retelling. From today, Konoha village will no longer be Tsunade or Hokage. After the people behind got the signal, they rushed towards the rest of the crowd from all directions like ants. Jiraiya stared at Orochimaru in front of him, and Orochimaru was not idle, and his hand was sealed. Ninja snake hand hidden shadow. I saw a larger snake head emerge from Orochimaru's mouth and bite at Naruto who was fighting over there. After Jiraiya found his target, he immediately frowned and said to Orochimaru. Ninfa Hao Fireball Technique. A large group of flames spewed out of Jiraiya's mouth, completely burning the enemies around Naruto, and the snake that Orochimaru spit out was also swallowed by the fire. Orochimaru quickly retracted his tongue, looked at Kakashi angrily for a moment, and then continued the knot. Ninja Multi-Snake Hidden Shadow. Only after Jiraiya retracted the flame did he realize that Orochimaru, who was on the opposite side, released a group of colorful snakes to attack him, and Orochimaru said proudly. Now you can't protect yourself. Ha ha. Jiraiya ignored him, it was just a sign of self-care, and when Orochimaru saw the sign of Jiraiya, there was a look of panic written on his face, and he wanted to run away, but it was too late, and Jiraiya also became after finishing the seal, he bowed down with one hand and shouted with a victorious look on his face. Water Escape River Blowing Technique. Everyone who was still fighting suddenly felt a shadow in the sky, so everyone looked up and couldn't help but look shocked, and the enemy who was fighting also ran to Orochimaru. Jiraiya would not miss this opportunity, shoo. As soon as he grabbed his hand, the water was instantly released in front of Jiraiya, and the snakes were washed away by the water. Just when everyone was about to cheer, Tsunade stopped everyone and looked at the other side with a heavy face. It's too early to be happy, that Danzo is not a vegetarian. What happened next caught everyone by surprise. The water in Jiraiya was completely absorbed by a large Sancho fish, and Danzo was standing on the head of the Sancho fish in front of him, looking at them proudly. Jiraiya was also he gritted his teeth, and he didn't have much chakra to use. If you use other ninjutsu, I am afraid that these children will not be able to protect these children. At this time, a voice from behind Jiraiya said. Just let me meet this man. Everyone heard the sound and saw that it was Kai who was confidently speaking to everyone from behind, and Jiraiya was also guilty. Although you are a fighting technique ninja, Danzo's Sancho fish is highly poisonous and cannot be touched. You can only use ninjutsu or knock yourself down. Oh, then knock yourself out. Jiraiya also thought that he could convince him, but Kai felt that this challenge was very suitable for his appetite, so he rushed forward with confidence, and then said to Danzang. Konoha Junin Matekai, come and learn. At this time, Jiraiya already knew that he couldn't stop him, so he could only watch on the side to see if the other two would play a trick on Kai, and Shaoli also shouted at Kai with enthusiasm. Master, you must win. Chapter 267 _ Danzo saw Kai rushing towards him, with a weird smile on his face. Did you send a melee ninja here to die? It doesn't matter who wins or loses. Don't jump to conclusions so early, uncle. Kai also sarcastically said, I saw that Danzang did not directly fight, but retreated after releasing the Sanjiao, as if preparing to sit on the mountain to watch the tiger fight, but at this time, Zilai also found out that the Sanjiao was going to fight Kai, and hurriedly called lived in Kaido. K. Don't touch it, try to hit yourself. After Kai turned his head and showed a white smile to everyone, he went forward without hesitation, and did not avoid Sanjiao fish at all, Shaoli explained on the side. The master said that no matter how powerful the enemy is, we must go forward bravely. Naruto and the others covered their faces, while Naruto said helplessly to Shaoli. That can't be a single tendon. The lecherous immortal said that it is a psychic beast full of poison. Although Senior Kai said that it is relatively powerful, you should beat yourself up when you encounter such a psychic beast, right? After Shaoli lowered his head and thought for a while, he looked at Kai's back with a look of admiration in his eyes. I see, I didn't expect you to be willing to challenge an impossible enemy in order to set an example for me, Master Kai. You are so great. Naruto also had nothing to say to look at Shaoli's admiration, so he walked aside and stayed with Xiaoying to check the situation on the other side, while Xiaoying also disliked Naruto very much, and then walked to Sasuke's side. People suddenly felt a gloomy thought in their hearts. Why are you doing this to me? At this moment, Naruto, who was petrifying, heard a gentle voice say softly from behind. Naruto-kun, are you alright? As soon as Naruto heard this voice, he knew who it was, and looked back with a look of grievance, and the person in front of him was Hinata of the Hinata family. Hinata was already shy when he saw Naruto's back. After that, I can't wait to put my head on the ground. And after Naruto turned his head, Hinata kept repeating a sentence in his heart. Naruto-kun looked at me. Naruto-kun looked at me. What should I do? Naruto also hugged Hinata symbolically to show that he was in a very depressed mood now, while Hinata was thinking about the question just now, and found that Naruto hugged him involuntarily, and the red on his face suddenly rushed up. So that he was so excited that he fainted. After finding out that Hinata had fainted, Naruto was also taken aback, and Hyuga Neji on the side wanted to hit Naruto for a long time. Seeing Hinata fainted, she even came up to grab Hinata and helped her go to the back to rest. And Naruto looked at the back of the two embarrassedly, but at this time, Jirai also shouted in front of him. Not good. Retreat. Naruto immediately turned his head to look at the battlefield, only to find that Kai had already opened 8 inner gates at this time, and the wounds on his body were mixed with blood. Naruto nervously looked at whether Kai on the opposite side would withdraw, and then watched looking at Shaoli next to him. He found that he was also so nervous that his face kept sweating. Although you are excellent, you cannot be used by me, so you must die today. As soon as Tuanzang finished speaking, the Sanjiao spun and spread the venom on his body in all directions. Kai frowned and gritted his teeth. The chakra vindictiveness on his body was still burning, and he suddenly found that the venom was not only directed towards him. And Shaoli and Naruto dispersed in that direction, and there was a panic on their faces, and they hurriedly said to Jiraiya. Jilai also. And Zilai also looked at the venom that filled the sky, and naturally knew how powerful it was. He immediately threw his long white hair in front of everyone, and the long hair also seemed to have life, and it continued to grow with the number of people. It completely covered everyone before spreading. Seeing this scene, Kai felt more relieved. Staring at the venom in front of him and using his feet hard, he dodged and escaped from the range of venom. Danzo naturally counted the Jiraiyas and saw that they had escaped the venom rain. With a smile on his face, looked at Kaido confidently. The fire burst into flames. Only then did Kai realize that he had fallen into the trap that Danzo had laid out in advance. Looking at the detonating charms on the ground, there were probably hundreds of them. Kai was in no hurry to dodge, and when the people who had just escaped the poisonous rain were released by Jiraiya's hair protection, they saw Kai disappear in a burst of explosions, followed by a deafening explosion. Master Kai. Shaoli rushed over first, and then Jirai, who had consumed a lot of chakra and was half kneeling on the ground, also stood up and was about to pull Shaoli, who was going to the dangerous area. The people behind also realized that something was wrong, and also when he wanted to go forward, Orochimaru, who was on the side, used ninjutsu to take advantage of the chaos. Ninja multi-snake hand hidden shadow. After that, many people in the crowd were bitten to death by snakes. When he noticed that there was a strange Jiraiya behind him, he looked back and found that there were many poisonous snakes in the crowd, and he knew who it was. Tsunade also looked at Jiraiya. Looking in the direction, my heart is also tight. Orochimaru. Ha ha ha, don't worry, they just slept temporarily, but if there is no antidote, they may die. Seeing Orochimaru say this, Tsunade also gnashed his teeth and looked at him, so he put down his hatred first and returned to the crowd to save people, and Jiraiya was in a hurry at this time, and quickly tied the seal in his hand. Ninjutsu Shadow Clone Jutsu. Seeing this mess, the enemy would naturally not miss a good opportunity to disrupt them. The elder of the land of water waved his hand to the back and shouted. Give it to me, catch Naruto Uzumaki and Hokage alive, and kill the rest. I saw the ninja behind him like a hornet's nest rushing out of the dense sky behind the elder. Tsunade no longer hid, and closed his eyes to the ninjas who came from the sky. When Orochimaru saw this technique, the expression on his face suddenly became very ugly, and the elder of the Water Kingdom who noticed the face of Orochimaru just wanted to ask, but all the ninjas that flew over there were melted. The elder was shocked. What is this? This isn't some kind of ninjutsu, it's a psychic beast summoned by the shitbone forest, a slug. Orochimaru still had a bad look on his face, looking at the huge slug in front of him. Only at this time did the elder realize that Tsunade was standing on the head of the slug and looked at everyone majestically. At this time, Tsunade's eyes sharpened, and he instructed the slug to go to Shaoli's side, that is, the mountain pepperfish that was about to touch Shaoli vomited a mouthful of acid. Danzo saw that he hurriedly instructed the Sanjiao to retreat, but the Sanjiao was in no hurry to dodge, and the skin on his body was stained with a little acid. Chapter 268 Towards the Peacock. The piece of skin it touched instantly smoky, which made the Sanjiao fish so painful that it hurriedly rolled on the ground. When Tsunade saw the flaw, he immediately called the slug to spit out several acid fluids, and the Sanshoyu, which was so painful that he couldn't hear Danzo's order, was immediately dipped in more acid fluid. A huge cloud of blue smoke instantly covered the entire battlefield, and the mountain pepperfish was also beaten back. Shaoli was looking for his master in the smoke, but found that the place just now was empty. At this time, Shaoli shouted. Master Kai, where are you? Naruto and Sakura who came over saw that Shaoli was alright, and they felt more relieved, and one of the little slugs that split from Tsunade's slug squirmed in front of the three of them. You guys get out of here quickly, this is what Tsunade-sama said, we are all caught. The confused Naruto said to the slug. Middle plan. And why are you leaving? Yeah, why did you leave you? Aren't you fighting against outsiders now? Hearing the two's questions, Slug led the three of them as they walked. The skin of Danzo's Sancho fish will become poisonous mist after being eroded. If you inhale a lot of this mist, you will be poisoned or even die. In the past, Tsunade-sama was defeated because of this mist, so you have to go somewhere. Avoid it. After listening to Slug's explanation, Naruto realized that the surrounding air had become turbid and a touch of purple, and the three of them were shocked. If Slug hadn't arrived, they would have already woken up and patted their chests with lingering fears. Shaoli followed behind with a disappointed face, turning his head back from time to time to see where Kai was. Naruto, who was holding his clothes to cover his nose, saw Shaoli's lost appearance, and thought that Kai's life and death were unknown now, so he slowed down, right? Shaoli comforted him. Senior Kai will be fine, because he's a joinin, and it's not a joinin's style to die so easily, so I believe Senior Kai, how about you? I believe it too. After hearing Naruto's words, Shaoli's face instantly swept away the haze, and there seemed to be a lot of fire burning in his eyes. In the chaotic moment, a voice said to Naruto. Oh, that's it. Shaoli is optimistic. Among the three, Xiaoli was the one with the strongest reaction. I saw Xiaoli shouting in that direction with tears in her eyes. Master Kai. At this time, Xiaoli saw that there was a figure in that direction, standing still in the purple mist, and Xiaoying shouted loudly to Kai in the mist. Senior Kai, this fog is poisonous. Come out. Huh, poisonous. Then let me break him up. The three of them wanted to say something over there, only to see that the fog began to surging, and the slug looked at the man inside and muttered to himself. Is this? Well, I forgot that the master actually has this trick. Xiaoli took the words and looked at Kai's figure excitedly and burst into tears, while Naruto next to him only felt the madness of chakra and aura, while Xiao Sakura surrounded a shield to cover the four of them inside. And when Danzo was preparing to do something, he suddenly found that there was a place over there where chakra reacted very strongly, and the elders and Orochimaru on the side had already noticed the change there. Oh, it's not Kai's. Before Orochimaru finished speaking, the restless breath in the purple mist spread out in all directions, and a man in a green jumpsuit with a burning chakra soared into the sky. Get a big drink. Towards the peacock. For a while, the man kicked countless fireballs from his feet, and the next second, the fireballs were scattered to Danzo and the ninjas behind him, and the fireballs scattered around him like a shower. All the fireballs burned where the bones and internal organs were shattered and drowned in the fireball. The Danzo three people and the surrounding Jonin tried their best to resist the sky-filled fireball, and Jiraiya also told his own people to retreat, and those ninjas who were still fighting found that their opponents ran away and wanted to chase them. Only then did he realize that the fireballs in the sky had nowhere to hide, and the dense crowd was instantly killed and injured more than half. After a period of time like this, Ziwu was also dispersed by the fireballs. At this moment, Kai retracted his feet and jumped out of the air. After touching the ground, he was half kneeling on the ground. When Xiaoli saw it, he immediately went over to help him, and the slug also followed up to heal his injuries. Now that you're satisfied, you've lost both, is that what you want? Jiraiya also looked towards Danzo, who had just put down the barrier created by chakra, and looked at Jiraiya with a look of no anger and self-righteousness. Okay, you can force me to this step, you forced me. After Danzo finished speaking viciously, he said to the two beside him. You two, I'll leave it to you next, don't forget the contract, whoever of you can capture Naruto and Naruto alive will give you the right to use the trial land after killing everyone. Haha, I just like a copper-smelling beneficiary like you, that's fine, I'll come. After receiving the words, Orochimaru made a very complicated seal. Although it was not as fast as Kakashi's, it was also faster than many people's seals. Jiraiya hurriedly called everyone back, and then said to Tsunade. Tsunade, move the wounded. Next, I'm afraid it will be a hard fight. Ha ha ha, do you see it? That's okay, let's show you how fragile your life is. After speaking, he dropped his hands to the ground and patted the ground. A group of small ninjutsu characters were immediately lined up. Orochimaru saw the characters appear and said proudly. The art of psychic. A huge chakra residual smoke enveloped Orochimaru. At this time, Naruto looked at the towering smoke and asked curiously. Why is there so much chakra lingering smoke? The slug on the side explained as he walked. Because this is based on volume. This object is relatively small and will have a corresponding amount of chakra and then produce chakra smoke, and this smoke is exactly the size of the summoned. Naruto was taken aback when he heard it, and Xiaoli supported the weak Kai also to look at the smoke that was bigger than the Tsunade slug. If I encounter that thing, I might just run away. Jiraiya stared at the thing in the chakra mist, for fear that he would suddenly come out and catch himself by surprise. Tsunade helped everyone escape from the back, but also looked over there from time to time, brows are not comfortable. Press down. Hey, there is a price to summon this uncle. Humans. Chapter 269 10,000 Snakes. Everyone present today is your food. As long as you help me catch the woman and the boy on the slug, how about this, are you satisfied with this gift? One snake. The irritable voice that suddenly appeared in the chakra fog gave everyone a shudder, and Orochimaru jumped to the top with ease, and pointed to Naruto after speaking to the 10,000 snakes in the fog. The fog gradually dissipated as he spoke, and what Zillai saw was exactly what he thought, a huge snake head and a huge and powerful body, with black spots all over his body. No matter who he looked at, the eyes of prey made people shudder, and Zillai also muttered to himself. Sure enough, it's a million snakes. The first time Naruto saw 10,000 snakes, his reaction was the same as most people. They hid behind and did not dare to look directly at it. Sasuke also took a step back subconsciously. The space between the two sides was extremely empty. There was also a nameless wind on the ground. Suddenly remembering that Jiraiya also has Toad Bunta, Naruto said excitedly to Jiraiya. The lecherous fairy, can't you also summon Toad Bunta? Why don't you summon it? Jiraiya didn't look back, still watching Wan Shi, who was ready to attack at any time, was silent for a while, and found that the other party seemed to be planning something, and Jiraiya spoke up. My chakra has been exhausted, and now I can only protect you once. If you force the summoning, you can only fail and run out of chakra and die. It can only depend on Granny Tsunade. Jiraiya also lowered his brows. This was a fact he knew in his heart but didn't want to say. Seeing that he didn't speak for a long time, Tsunade helped Jiraiya to finish the next words. Although my slug is hurt, the skin of the snake is not afraid of acid at all. Neither of us can kill anyone. Naruto lowered his head in disappointment, and Xiao Li, who was behind him, patted him on the shoulder, and then said to himself. We don't need to rely on anyone, let's defeat him on our own. We are the future of Konoha. After hearing Xiao Li's words, Naruto's lost appearance slowly subsided. Looking at Xiao Li who was full of confidence in front of him, Naruto also regained his self-confidence and gathered a spiral pill in his hand to turn the tide of the battle. At this moment, Jiraiya spoke to the people behind him. Everyone, I will lure Wan Snake away in a while, and you will take the opportunity to escape. But, before Tsunade finished speaking, Wan Snake rushed straight towards Jiraiya like a sharp sword, while Tsunade rushed towards Wan Snake one step earlier, and Wan Snake also instantly wrapped around the body of the slug, and since then when I saw Tsunade messing around like this, I couldn't help but say angrily. Tsunade, why go against my words? Because I can't kill you. Tsunade was struggling with Wan Snake, and Jiraiya lost his anger just now. Without saying a word, he said to Wan Snake's head in a knot. Fire escape how fireball technique. A huge fireball greeted Wan Snake's head. At this time, Wan Snake was tightly wrapped around the slug's body, unable to move, and the slug struggled in pain. Z stepped aside, and Jiraiya was also shocked. Tsunade, leave now. Tsunade also saw the fireball, patted the slug's head, and then jumped to a farther open space, and the slug was hit directly on the head by this blow, and an explosion instantly blew the slug's head into pieces, into hundreds of small slugs disintegrated from the body in an instant and scattered at Tsunade's feet before slowly forming a large slug. Naruto and the others who thought that the slug would be killed just now understood why Tsunade said that no one can kill anyone. Wan Shi took the opportunity to flee to the side, looked at Naruto intently, and then said to Orochimaru above his head. Hey, that child is actually a nine-tailed human pillar. I just realized that the reason I was angered was because the child had the power of nine-tailed. Haha, it's really interesting. Orochimaru looked at Naruto and the spiral pill in his hand with a playful look, stretched out two fingers and tickled him provocatively, while Naruto also gritted his teeth and aimed at Orochimaru and threw the spiral pill in his hand. A standard arc attracts everyone's attention. Naruto, what are you doing? Jiraiya also looked at Naruto who was rambunctious, and blamed him for not causing trouble at this time, but the vision protruded, and the spiral pill was bounced back by the tail of the snake, which made Naruto anxious. He never saw it the person who can throw the spiral pill as a ball. Jiraiya also thought of this, and told everyone not to act rashly. But now that it was a fact, Jiraiya also gathered a spiral pill in his hand and threw it into the sky. Naruto was stunned. His spiral pill was accurately hit and offset by Jiraiya's spiral pill. which made his worship of Jiraiya even more. Ninja clone technique. Everyone only heard that after the Orochi pill on Wanchi's head was finished, there were several identical Wanshin around Wanchi, and they were all the same size, which made the already very difficult Jirai even more difficult, and Danzo on the side it seemed that the victory was in his hands, and he looked confidently at the fight between the two sides, but the next second his face changed. Because at this time there were a total of 6 clones including the main body, and 3 of them came in the direction of Danzang, the elder of the water country asked loudly. Orochimaru, what do you mean? And Orochimaru, Vivi Isho, licked his lips with his huge long tongue, and looked over there sinisterly. Didn't I say, the whole audience is the offering of one snake? Danzang and the elders on the side were shocked, and the elders hurriedly signaled the ninjas behind to go up and deal with these clone snakes, and Danzang saw that the situation was not right, so he wanted to release the dream taper, but after thinking about it, the current situation is still waiting. Look, the location of Hokage must be given today. The emotions on the faces of the elders of the Land of Water gradually changed from the ease of sending out ninjas to deal with the myriad snake clones to panic and anxiety, because the myriad snakes in front of him ate all the ninjas that came, and the rest of the ninjas saw it completely. It was the rhythm of going to die, and he didn't dare to continue rushing forward. The elder looked back at the ninja with less than 50 people left behind, and couldn't help sighing. I had already consumed a lot of Konoha. Before that, I brought 50,000 people with me, but I didn't expect that it would be swallowed up by 10,000 snakes. Danzo on one side saw that the elder of the Land of Water was about to run away, so he killed him with a knife from behind, while the ninja of the Land of Water, who had not yet been dispatched, saw the elder being killed, some fled immediately, and some directly. Going forward and wanting to kill Danzo, he took out the Toyodao and rushed towards Danzo. But where would Danzo be afraid of these scumbags? He muttered to himself to the dozens of people in front of him. Chapter 270 Danzo of Civil Disturbance. It's time to get serious. The ninjas didn't care what he said, they just slashed over with their knives, while Danzo stared, quickly forming a seal on his hand, and muttering words at the end. Wind escape vacuum slash. A sharp burst of compressed air spit out from Tuanzang's mouth. The dozens of people in front of him were cut through by the air in an instant. Wherever they went, there was not a complete corpse. It was time to deal with the avatar of the snake, and the blood spurting out of the arteries of the dozens of people behind it seemed to dye the sky red. Wind escape vacuum slash. Another sharp air passed through the 10,000 snakes that were raging like a thin blade. Wherever they passed, the 10,000 snakes suddenly turned into bursts of chakra smoke and flew towards the main body, and Danzo on the side faced a few clumps of gas muttered to themselves. Will all the chakra of the absorbed person be returned to the main body? It's a terrible vampire technique. What do you mean when you send me here and don't send it? You agreed to send us out. Zhang Yang and Kakashi Naiko were in a cave, while Zhang Yang was questioning Fo Lang inside his body, and Fo Lang also faced Zhang Yang helplessly. The power in this can only send you to a place not far from the exit, and this is the limit of the power in this place, and it will be crushed by the seal. Is there a seal? Then isn't it difficult for you to pass? When Zhang Yang heard the seal, he wondered in his heart why the half-faced snake and so many powerful things that were not encountered outside would obediently stay inside and not run out. It turned out to be this reason. You can leave for a while, I will try my best to suppress my breath, and you will be in more pain. Just be patient. Zhang Yang thought about the pain in his heart, and who could keep this NB creature in it? It seems that this seal is not easy. Does that mean keep going forward? You can't get there even if you go back. Zhang Yang was speechless for a while by its irony. Indeed, there is only one way ahead. In order to avoid more embarrassment, Zhang Yang hurriedly left his consciousness and slowly opened his eyes. Naizi wiped Zhang Yang's sweat and saw Zhang Yang open. He opened his eyes, and the concern in his eyes was not expressed in words. Yo, wake up, what does it say? He said just go straight ahead. Then we have to go out quickly, otherwise there will be chaos in the village. Zhang Yang nodded, took Naiko and walked forward, while Kakashi was injured by 10,000 points on the side, so he made an excuse to walk in front of the two. In fact, he didn't want to see the two show their affection. The people who were confronting Orochimaru cut off the clones of the 10,000 snakes. Everyone in Konoha was in a state of embarrassment. At the cost of killing the 10,000 snakes, the ninjas were also killed and injured a lot, turning into a cloud of chakra mist. The myriad snake clone floated towards the myriad snake. And Jiraiya's chakra is almost exhausted. He sits on the ground with his butt in a state of embarrassment and gasps. Tsunade's slugs are also scattered and treated on everyone's body. The slugs themselves also look smaller. Jiraiya, who Tsunade relied on, is now training with his eyes closed on the ground. She knew in her heart that Jiraiya also used a lot of chakra when the enemy attacked. As a ninja with a small amount of chakra, it was the limit to persist until now. In fact, Jiraiya was also getting in touch with Kakashi, and Kakashi in the cave suddenly found that there was a faint chakra in his mind constantly wanting to get in touch with him. Kakashi left and thought it was Jiraiya, suddenly stopped and said to Jongyang, "You wait for me, there may be an accident over there, I will contact him." Jongyang nodded, motioning himself and Naiko to wait for him where he was. Kakashi also sat down with his legs crossed and closed his eyes. After seeing Jiraiya's embarrassed appearance, Kakashi asked with a change of face, "Who is the enemy, to make you so embarrassed?" Kakashi didn't ask if the village was attacked, because Kakashi already knew the result, but he didn't expect Jiraiya to be so embarrassed, and saw Jiraiya on the opposite side. "Don't talk about it, Orochimaru is here, and he's bringing people from the land of water. There's also a Danzo who is in charge of everything. Come out quickly, I can't guarantee how long it will last." After speaking, Jiraiya seemed to have encountered something, so he cut off the connection at once. Kakashi opened his eyes, stood up and told Jongyang about everything, because now it is in Kakashi's heart. Although Jongyang is a child, his chakra volume and possessions are enough to beat a country. "Then let's go. We can go out immediately after we cross the seal." Jongyang was also anxious in his heart, because after thinking about it carefully, this situation has already been rewritten by himself. If he didn't come, I'm afraid there will be no such butterfly effect in the village now. Then he pulled Naiko and ran forward, and Kakashi also ran in front with a solemn face, because if Jongyang agreed to save Konoha village, it would be a sure victory. "Jongyang, what do you think that bridge is?" Jongyang followed Kakashi's voice, and there was a strangely shaped stone bridge in front of it. In the middle of the bridge was a huge black ravine, and the distance was 100 meters long. If there were no psychic beasts who were good at jumping, it is impossible to pass by his own strength. The three walked slowly to the front of the bridge, and found a stone slab at the top of the bridge. Jongyang looked as tall as one person, and it was covered with dense text. Kakashi stepped forward and looked at it. "It's an ancient script, and I just happened to learn it." Although Jongyang knew that he was going to pretend again, he still waited for him to pretend, and then said, "You pretend? Oh no, tell me, what exactly is written on it?" Kakashi ignored Jongyang's ill sentence, looked at the words on the slate, his face changed greatly, and after looking at Jongyang, he paused again and again. The original text above is to the effect of, "Jongyang is the most annoying to others. If a girl likes to watch her hesitant, but Kakashi himself is hesitant." Jongyang instantly felt that there must be some shocking secret written on this slate, so he asked, "Senior, you said, what did you write?" Kakashi looked at Jongyang, then looked at the slate in front of him to confirm again and again. "It is written on it that the three are not allowed to cross the bridge, and the offender will die." Naiko grabbed Jongyang's hand even tighter at once. Naiko was afraid that it would be unfavorable to Jongyang, but Jongyang also smiled and stroked Naiko's hand to ease her emotions, and then continued to ask Kakashi. Chapter 271 Three Taboos. Which three are those? Kakashi also decided not to be a mother-in-law, and said seriously to Jongyang. "The first type, those who are recognized by the god of death." Naizi breathed a sigh of relief, but Zhang Yang smiled bitterly. He didn't expect that he would be so reckless, and he was hit by the first one. Seeing Zhang Yang's wry smile, Kakashi said to Zhang Yang with a solemn expression. Did you hit the first rule? Haha, nothing, I just think it's funny. Hearing Zhang Yang say this, Kakashi and Neiko also breathed a sigh of relief, but they didn't know that Zhang Yang was lying to prevent them from worrying, and Kakashi continued to say the second way. Second, the prophecy named Zhang Yang cannot pass this bridge. Neiko collapsed in an instant, and Zhang Yang understood why Kakashi had such an expression at this time, and he was also stunned. He came to this world and was already calculated over and over again. At this time, Zhang Yang felt in his heart. Thought. I'm not that famous in that world, okay. What's the situation now? The first person who figured me out is going to kill me, and the second person who figured me out wants me to stay in this hole and never get out. Really TM is enough, but labor and capital still have to leave. Quote. So Zhang Yang confronted Kakashi with a face of dissatisfaction. What about the third rule? Well, I see. Seeing that Zhang Yang was not frightened by the second rule, and admired Zhang Yang's courage, he continued. The third type, Chaos God Dragon Folang will never walk out of the world-breaking bridge. After listening to these 3 articles, Zhang Yang became more angry in his heart. He took a kick against the slate, but he didn't expect it to be exactly this kick and kicked the slate down. Zhang Yang looked at Kakashi and Neiko innocently. I just moved slightly, but I didn't expect him to fall. I don't carry the blame. Kakashi looked at Zhang Yang strangely. Why do you keep saying some strange things? Why can't I understand anything? Neiko looked at the position of the slate and patted Kakashi in front of her, and Kakashi almost spit out a mouthful of old blood by this shot. Zhang Yang stopped Neiko's killing, which made Kakashi touch. He coughed back on his chest. Cough cough. Princess Neiko, what are you doing? I'm sorry, Kakashi-senpai, I just want you to see a line of words on the ground. And Kakashi also followed suit, looking at the place Neiko pointed, and indeed found a line of writing with blood. Kakashi looked at it, stood up without a word and walked back with Zhang Yang, and Zhang Yang was also confused by this move. Neiko found that Kakashi was not normal, and hurriedly pulled the card. Casey asked. Kakashi-senpai, you are. Before he finished speaking, Kakashi pushed Neiko's hand away from his arm. Neiko looked at Kakashi with incredible eyes, a Kakashi who was gentle to everyone, and now he is using so much strength pushing herself away. Neiko felt that there must be something strange in the text, but Zhang Yang saw Kakashi pushed Neiko away, and immediately pushed Kakashi away and ran towards Neiko. Want to die? Before Zhang Yang ran in front of Neiko, a sharp blade of kunai was already on Zhang Yang's neck, and Zhang Yang also realized that Kakashi had been confused by something, and slowly straightened up. Kunai. Also with the publicity slowly stood up and slowly rose. A gleam flashed in Naizi's eyes. Just when Neiko opened his mouth to shout, Zhang Yang saw Kakashi raise another kunai to greet him at an unparalleled speed in Naizi's eyes, and suddenly pushed away. Open the dagger around the neck. As a result, he avoided the dagger that stabbed at him, and gave Kakashi a kick in the stomach with his hands on the ground. After being kicked, Kakashi stepped back several steps, and Zhang Yang had already stood firm in front of Neiko. You aren't Kakashi? Zhang Yang asked Kakashi, who was behaving strangely in front of him, and Kakashi in front of him hit him with a shuriken. Zhang Yang took Neiko to dodge, and several shuriken that came were scattered on the wall. Can be said to be a 3-pointer. If that's the case, then don't blame me. It's the Naruto world anyway. I can help you come back to life when you die. Thinking that Kakashi could be resurrected, Zhang Yang also decided to be ruthless. He pulled out the shuriken that penetrated the wall and threw the shuriken with a strong electric current at Kakashi while running, and Kakashi also picked up the bitter wu stood in place and easily blocked. At this time, Zhang Yang's heart already knows it. Kakashi easily fends off his shuriken with lightning attached, which is impossible in normal times, because the current will also make the iron kunai conduct electricity, and thus he was electrocuted to the point of abandoning kunai, but there was no sign of him being attacked at all. Zhang Yang now had two choices in his heart. First, this is a dream. I must have been forcibly brought into the dream by something. Second, I was not hypnotized by anything. On the contrary, Kakashi was hypnotized or controlled. Looking at the Kakashi in front of him, Zhang Yang couldn't tell which one it was, but Zhang Yang made a decision in his heart. No matter which one, he had to subdue Kakashi first. Naiko, who was behind, also climbed to the side of the red letter, took a look, and shouted to Zhang Yang. Publicity. And Zhang Yang didn't turn his head back, but he knew what she was doing, so he asked. What's written on it? Naiko stood up and said to Zhang Yang. It is written that the prophet will overthrow the stone tablet, and the wheel eye will punish the prophet who ignores the rules. If the above three are all in, it will be obliterated by the wheel eye guardian. It was only after publicity that he knew why Kakashi suddenly became like this. It turned out to be a curse that had been waiting for him from a long time ago, and he confirmed the fact of the prophet, and let him bring the writing wheel. The eyed Kakashi was also deeply involved, and Zhang Yang had to think again how to make Kakashi wake up. Moreover, the situation in Konoha village is very critical now. If you continue to spend it with Kakashi, not to mention that chakra and physical strength are almost used up, and after such a long time, everyone in Konoha village has almost rested in peace. But Kakashi didn't say much, and didn't give Zhang Yang a chance. Kuwusheng ran towards Zhang Yang with Rachel, and it got faster and faster. Have it. Zhang Yang had a plan in his mind, because at this time he had a good way of being loyal and filial. Naiko on the side was embraced by Zhang Yang, and Kakashi's accompanying Rachel was about to hit, but it was found that Zhang Yang and Naiko were just a phantom. When Kakashi looked back, Zhang Yang had already run on the bridge with Naiko, and Kakashi accelerated on his feet and caught up in an instant. Chapter 272 The Undying Game. Orochimaru, is that enough strength? Danzo on one side walked out slowly. He looked at Orochimaru on the head of the giant snake that inhaled the chakra of his clone. Orochimaru showed a surprised and expected expression on his face, and then asked Danzo on the other side. Road. I didn't expect you to die, this is so disappointing, Danzo. Looking at Orochimaru with a wicked smile on his face, Danzo's half-face wrapped in white cloth also showed a smile, and Orochimaru didn't want to see his prey mocking him, so he patted Manzadao. One snake, kill that person, he is more than 100 human sacrifices. After Wan Shi heard the words, he turned his head to Danzang's side, spat out a letter, and there was no trace of pity or doubt in his eyes. An afterimage ran directly to Danzo. Jiraiya, did you see? The speed of Wan's snake is even faster. When Jiraiya was communicating with Kakashi just now, he was attacked by Danzo's Fengdun. Fortunately, Naruto on the side used the spiral pill to defuse this Fengdun in front of him. At this time, Jiraiya could not be contacted. After Kakashi, he looked towards the battlefield, heard Tsunade's exclamation, and Jiraiya also said solemnly. Ah, yes, I don't have chakra now, and your slug is also used to save people. Now the snake has become larger and more violent, and its speed has become unparalleled. Our odds of winning are slim. Master Jiraiya, how can you say that? We shouldn't give up at any time, shouldn't we? At least there are 7 classes of us. Jiraiya looked back at Naruto and the others with difficulty. He couldn't help releasing his frown, and forced a smile. Ha ha ha, yes, you and I are the same, there is still a lot of unfinished business. Yes, Naruto is right, now is not the time to give up, can we just sit back and wait? Tsunade looked at the front and agreed, while Neji, Shikamaru and others who were behind Naruto stepped forward to face Naruto and so said. Don't forget, it's not only your 7th class who have the limelight, but also us. Seeing Naruto everyone's unyielding aura, Jirai also remembered himself back then. He sighed, and slowly stood up and shouted along with Tsunade. Okay, then we can't lose to young people. On the other side of the Orochimaru, Wanza jumped away, and Danzo hit Wanza's skin. Although it was only a little scratch, it was enough to show the fierceness of Danzo's attack. This act provoked Wanya even more. Orochimaru pointed to the smoke that Danzo attacked Wanya just now. After Wanza received the order, the afterimage flashed. Jiraiya and Tsunade wiped their eyes again, but still no trace of Wan's snake was found. Just when everyone was quiet, Shikamaru, who was behind, suddenly shouted to everyone. "There's someone behind." Hearing this shout, Naruto turned his head abruptly, only to find that a large number of Anbu ninjas appeared behind them, all wearing white animal masks on their faces. "Is that how you protect Konoha?" Tsunade yelled at the Anbu ninja behind, and the expression on his face was close to hideous, but the Anbu ninja did not ignore her. Instead, he continued to kill the guards who were not prepared. Before everyone could move, a figure came. When he arrived in front of Jiraiya, Jiraiya also discovered this person at this time, but was unable to resist, so he had to be obediently choked by that person. Master Jiraiya. Seeing Naruto, who was in trouble on both ends, he could only shout out his anger and powerlessness. Suddenly, someone behind him patted him on the shoulder. Naruto, who was in trouble, looked back suspiciously, but Sasuke said to him, "Naruto, look over there." The doubtful Naruto accidentally saw the direction of Anbu's sneak attack just now, but the next scene shocked him. At this time, that direction turned into a pile of black insects and various ninja tools flying, and Shaoli also opened two doors and rushed into the center of the Anbu ninja. Then Sasuke pulled out the grass pheasant sword and walked to Naruto. "Aren't you going to beat me? Let's try to see who kills the most enemies." Naruto stayed in place and saw Sasuke cut off the ninja who was about to cut Commander's assistant with a beautiful jump cut. Then he used the corpse's force, kicked his feet, and flew into the sky to rush to a farther place, and Naruto also looked towards on Jiraiya's side. Danzo, who was holding Jiraiya's neck, was pinched at the gate of life by Kai with a resolute face. Naruto also handed it over to them with confidence, and set a spiral towards the fighting Anbu ninja. Maru galloped away. "I say it again, put your hands down." Kai looked at Danzo, who was holding the gate of life by himself, and Danzo also laughed like a victor while holding Jiraiya. "The blue beast of Konoha. How about trying this?" When Kai heard this and was about to strike first, Danzo said to Jiraiya with one hand, "Wind escape vacuum wave." Jiraiya is naturally not a dead person. The pressure on Danzo's hand was reduced at the moment of H's attack, and Jiraiya held Danzo's hand with both hands, preventing Danzo from walking away, and at this time Kai was also attacked by Zillai. He also signaled to run away quickly. "Hee, boy, the person who rescued you has already run away, and you can't make a seal even if you hold me with both hands, so just wait to die." Fire escape how fireball technique. He only heard a crisp impact from the clogs on Jiraiya's feet. Although it was very small, in Danzo's eyes, this was panic. He didn't expect that Jiraiya could also make prints with his feet. At this moment, Tuanzang couldn't hold back his desire to strike first, and suddenly he spit out an extremely fast wind, and Zillai naturally wouldn't let him succeed, and the fireball instantly spewed out of his mouth. The ninjutsu of the two collided, and an explosion exploded from the middle of the two. Danzo was forced to let go of Jiraiya and jumped a long way. At the moment of the explosion, Jiraiya was about to die in honor. The hand even separated a slug and swallowed Jiraiya into the stomach. The subsequent explosion also generated a strong mountain wind, and the stone cave next to it seemed to be shaken. The whole mountain trembled slightly, but everyone was wrapped in the slug that was blown up by Jiraiya. Body, but who would have thought that the shaking was definitely not something that the explosion could reach. At this time, Danzo, who jumped back, suddenly found a fishy smell behind him, and hurriedly turned his head in the air to take a look, but there was already a fishy mucus and darkness in front of him, and the snake in that position licked his tongue contentedly. Orochimaru on the snake's head also smiled evilly. Chapter 273 Ha ha ha, after so many years, your strength has actually declined. It's a fragile human being and a life force that is vulnerable. Tsunade saw all this clearly on the head of the slug. Seeing that Tuan was hidden in the belly of the snake, Tsunade's burden was much easier, and the upside-down eyebrows were flattened. Naruto quickly left the battle, running towards the slug that spat out Jiraiya. Master Jiraiya. In the blink of an eye, Naruto ran up to Jiraiya. Just as he was about to help Jiraiya get up, Jiraiya was lying on the ground and preached. "I'm not dead yet, stop shouting, I haven't finished writing the biography of the hero. How can I die, ha ha ha. Master. Great, you'll be fine." Naruto hugged Jiraiya excitedly by the side, and Jiraiya was out of breath by this bear hug, so he pushed Naruto away with all his strength, but Naruto was surprised when he was pushed away. Looking at Jiraiya also said, "Master, what's the matter with you?" After lying on the ground and panting for a while, Jiraiya started to stand up and yelled, "Are you kidding me to kill me?" At this time, Naruto realized that the strength he used just now was a bit too much, and he looked at Jiraiya and touched his neck, and Naruto scratched the back of his head apologetically while looking at Jiraiya and smirked. "I really can't stand you." After Jiraiya went along for a long time, his face felt a little better. Tsunade saw that Jiraiya was fine, and shouted at Jiraiya, "It's coming. Attention." Jiraiya immediately adjusted his posture and waved his hand towards Naruto. "Naruto, you go to the battle over there, let us do it here." "Well, be more careful yourself." After responding, Naruto ran into the battlefield without turning his head and kicked away the ninja who was about to attack behind Hinata. Hinata turned around and saw that it was Naruto, and the exhaustion on his face was instantly refreshed. "It's coming. Well, I didn't expect the three of us to meet again in this situation." Jiraiya also faced Tsunade on the side, and he suddenly remembered, if you can't use chakra, then use natural energy. Before they could think about it, Wanshi took aim at Jiraiya and his sharp eyes disappeared with his body. The two were startled and immediately guarded their surroundings. At the same time, the three people in the cave were playing an escape game. Jongyang was running fast on the long and narrow bridge with Naiko in his arms, and Kakashi, who followed, was chasing with all his strength. Jongyang, who was running, suddenly felt behind him. A cold light was about to stab at him, so he twisted his body, then changed lanes and continued to run. When he looked back, he realized that the cold light was Kakashi quickly catching up with the kuei that he stabbed, and Kakashi didn't expect that Jongyang could sense kunai's attack in his own murderous aura, so he pulled out the kunai that was half plugged on the ground, and with a little lightning on his feet, rushed towards the two at a faster speed than before. "Oh my mother, you have to lose weight." Jongyang continued to flee to the other side with Naizi in his arms, while Naizi looked at the hard-working Jongyang Dao with aggrieved. "Ooh. Hey, don't cry, I'm wrong." Jongyang was holding the aggrieved Naiko, and he couldn't help laughing in his heart, because there was a person's weight in his hand, so the speed slowed down accordingly. Jongyang's plan just now was to lead Kakashi out to deal with those people, so as not to waste time. "I didn't expect that I can't run Kakashi until now. This is something I never imagined, so I tried my best to get in touch with Frong in my body while running. Hey, is brother here?" After running for a while, Jongyang found that he did not reply to himself, and he burst out instantly when he couldn't find an outlet. "Labor and management don't ask you to borrow money." "Oh, it's you, what's the matter with me?" After Jongyang heard Fu Leng's response, he became even more angry for some reason, but he still had to hold his breath. "Is there any way you can wake him up?" By the way, he looked at Kakashi who was chasing after him, and Fran pondered for a while, as if observing Kakashi's symptoms, and then continued. "As expected, you came here because you were arranged by others." "What? I believe the prophecy, but what happened to the arrangement?" Jongyang asked strangely, and ran hard by the way, because he had to run with all his strength, so there was no room for thinking in his head, so he could only leave it to Fu Leng to give him the answer. "When you came to this world, it was already predicted, and your coming here was also prearranged in advance. I can't say about the person who arranged you, but the person behind is destined to be prophesied under that slate." Confused. Only then did Zhang Yang know that it turned out that the slate would be kicked down by others, and Kakashi was destined to go back to see it. Zhang Yang, who never liked others to dominate his fate, was also on fire this time. Naiko looked at Zhang Yang with a gloomy face and wanted to reach out and touch it, but Zhang Yang was pulled out of his anger by this warm hand. The two looked at Isho, and Fu Lang continued. If you want to get rid of this curse, you can only escape from this place within 12 hours of being hit by this spell, and then recuperate for a few days. But what to do now? Isn't there a quick fix? After listening to this, Zhang Yang retorted, because he only ran a small half of the distance, and the bridge still has 3/4 of its length. If he keeps evading like this, not only Naiko in his arms can't stand it, but he also has no strength to run out. How will you save those people then? Are you sure about the method that will work? As soon as the words fell, Zhang Yang did not hurry. He was scratched on both arms by Kakashi's shuriken, and Naiko was surprised to see Zhang Yang, whose arms were bleeding but the speed had not slowed down. Tears came down immediately, and then struggled in Zhang Yang's arms. Let me go down. I'll go first. Zhang Yang gave her a serious look. Stop making trouble for me, shut up and watch me, or I'll knock you out. Looking at the man who suddenly became domineering in front of him, he seemed to have no doubts about what he said. For a while, Naiko's tears hung down on her stupefied face. After many battles, this little injury is not something to be afraid of, but Naiko, a girl with tears hanging on her face who forgot to cry and her eyes wide open, made Zhang Yang feel pity. No matter what, as long as he can stop chasing us. Folang didn't speak, but Zhang Yang felt a huge force accumulating in his body. He knew that this was Folang's start, so he pricked up his ears as he ran, ready to listen to Folang's orders. Stop. Face him. Chapter 274 Uniform Kakashi. A burst of drink. Zhang Yang, who had been prepared for a long time, turned around immediately, and Kakashi, who followed, just seized this opportunity. A Kuwuchao stabbed Zhang Yang, and the distance between the two was less than 1 meter. Naiko's eyes widened in Zhang Yang's arms, thinking that Zhang Yang would be killed. However, at this time, a vision suddenly appeared. A dragon claw appeared in Zhang Yang's body, and Kakashi saw the immobile expression on his face, and he shot backward at a very fast speed, but the speed of the dragon claw faster, grabbed Kakashi who just wanted to escape with lightning speed. At this time, Kakashi was ready to fight to the death, and pulled down the mask, revealing the writing wheel. Zhang Yang was shocked, because he was holding Naiko and couldn't move his hands, and the dragon claw came out of his body. The weight had already made Zhang Yang unable to move, and he could only watch Kakashi pull the surrounding area around him. Space is distorted. At this moment, Fu Lang in Zhang Yang's body shouted disdainfully. Shaking wheel eyes dare to run rampant in front of me. Scatter. As soon as the voice passed, an invisible majestic momentum spewed out of Zhang Yang's body, and the surrounding space was instantly restored, and Kakashi also covered his eyes, expressing great pain, and Fu Lang also said lazily inside his body. Okay, I'll accept the man first, and when you want to use him, call me again. The dragon claws on the body suddenly pulled Kakashi into the body and disappeared instantly. Zhang Yang looked at the empty place in front of him. If it weren't for the 2 wounds on his hands, I'm afraid he would still suspect that he was dreaming. Zhang Yang, what's wrong? Zhang Yang, who was in deep thought, realized that Nizi was shaking his hand in front of him. Zhang Yang couldn't help but step back. Nizi saw Zhang Yang as if he had seen a ghost, and pinched his face aggrieved and muttered to himself. Is it really fat? After Zhang Yang regained his senses, he smiled apologetically at Naiko, and then pulled Naiko to the exit. Although Naiko was pinching her own flesh all the way, Zhang Yang was also thinking that if Kakashi suddenly grew bigger, what would happen to him? Don't kill yourself. The two of them were just thinking about it. After walking the bridge, Nizi found that his foot had hit a stone, while Zhang Yang was still thinking like a demon, while Naiko held Zhang Dao aside. Zhang Yang, don't go, you see we've all come over. After being shaken by Naiko like this, Jongyang came out of his world. After rubbing his eyes and observing the surroundings, he could not help but exhale. I went and finally came out. But did you feel that we were just walking aimlessly as if we were enchanted? Hearing Nico's words, Jongyang also felt this experience, but he didn't have time to say anything. There was a violent explosion outside and the slight tremor of the mountain. Jongyang knew that now was not the time to delay. He had to go out immediately and clean up himself. Endgame. At this time, the pattern of the battlefield has undergone earth-shaking changes. Tsunade's slug can only support the wounded, and the slug body is as big as Tsunade. Jirai is also seriously injured. It is difficult to even open his eyes, and there are several blood holes bitten by 10,000 snakes on his body. And Orochimaru operates the snake to wreak havoc among the Naruto people. Ha ha ha, Jiraiya, die for me. Orochimaru looked at Jiraiya, who was dying on the ground, with a seal in his hand operating the ninja path. Ninja snake binding technique. Kai, who was cleaning up the snake and was bitten, just wanted to go up to help, but he didn't think so. The injury on his shoulder had already made it difficult for him to move. At this time, Tsunade was lying on the ground, gasping for breath, because in order to protect the people behind her in the battle just now, and with the constant use of chakra to treat the wounded, she could no longer stand up and fight. The slug on the side knew what Tsunade was in at this time, and sensibly helped Tsunade up. Seeing that Jiraiya was entangled by Orochimaru's snake, he looked at Wansho not far away. Orochimaru took out the pheasant sword and stabbed Jiraiya while saying, "I will end your life myself." And Zillai also seemed to accept his fate, recalling the past of his life, smiling at the corner of his mouth and closing his eyes. Kai shouted in the direction of Jiraiya unwillingly. "Stop!" But Orochimaru still went its own way. Seeing that the distance between the two of them was not far away, Tsunade felt tight in her heart, as if she was running forward. Unexpectedly, she fell as soon as she took the first step. The slug hurriedly helped Tsunade up and Tsunade shouted in a hoarse voice with tears in his eyes. "No, yes, Orochimaru. No, Jirai, no." Just at this critical moment, the snake stopped, and the crazy expression on Orochimaru's face also solidified, and the surrounding Tsunade and Kai also stopped. Naruto, who ended the battle, saw that Jirai was also in danger, and hurried up. "Go forward," but everyone behind them blocks. "One snake, why stop?" I sensed killing intent and something was coming towards us. After listening to the words of the snake, Orochimaru laughed playfully. "Is there anything else in this world that can make you afraid? There is no one here who can fight. Don't delay any longer. It needs to be resolved quickly." Wanshi hesitated for a while, believed what Orochimaru said, and used his thick black tail to directly hit Naruto, and immediately rushed to Jiraiya, and Jiraiya's blood was almost bleeding at this time. Orochimaru thought to himself, be sure to let Jiraiya become his own experiment. Tsunade's expression returned to the despair she had just before. At this time, she had no more tears to shed, so she could only stand up slowly with the slug. "Naruto-kun. Naruto." Seeing Naruto being swept away from below, he looked at Naruto worriedly. The place where Naruto fell was in the direction of a pointed stone next to the entrance of the cave. Hinata ran over first, but unfortunately the place was too far away from the crowd. As soon as he stepped, Naruto was already away from the pointed stone. There are only a few meters left, and everyone knows that once they hit it, it will penetrate Naruto's body. At this time, Shikamaru shouted with surprise on his face. "If it is pierced like this, that position is Naruto's heart." Hinata heard him say this, and ran forward even harder, while Zillai Wenyan also looked at Naruto vaguely. He pulled the corner of his mouth with difficulty, and whispered weakly, "Ming. Ren, don't. Jirai is starting to regret now. He did not use the immortal mode to defeat Orochimaru, but chose to understand that this old grudge was killed by Orochimaru. Now he is really selfish, but it is too late to regret it now. Jiraiya, I will let you live in another way." Chapter 275 The Appearance of the Nightmare Taper. Jiraiya only realized that the Orochimaru in front of him had raised a knife and stabbed him in the heart, and his expression was tense, but he was relieved when he thought that this was his destiny. A burst of imposing pressure came from the entrance of the cave, and everyone had to block their faces to prevent the swept air waves from rushing into the sand. Wan Shi turned his head to the side of the cave entrance, and Orochimaru also felt that something was wrong. But he still had to finish the task in front of him, and stabbed Jiraiya in front of him. And just when the knife just touched the skin and tore a small opening, Wan Shixiang sensed something, grabbed Orochimaru's body and ran frantically, and the knife was also pulled out. Tsunade also looking at the place where the coercion was swept up with a puzzled face, he muttered to himself with joy in his heart. Could it be that they came out? And the slug next to him was standing in front of Tsunade tremblingly. Tsunade-sama, quickly order them to go with you. I'm blocking the front, you go. Tsunade asked with a puzzled look, not knowing why. What's the matter, is there anything in that place? It won't be easy to explain it to you for a while now, it must be the enemy anyway. On the other side, Orochimaru, who was dragged halfway by the snake, instantly exerted strength to control the snake, and then stood on its head and said, Wan Snake, what do you mean? And Wan Snake raised his head with lingering fears. If it wasn't for me, you would have been chopped. Orochimaru looked in that direction, and found that there was a big pit in that direction of Jiraiya. Seeing that the sharp and angular appearance should have been blown up by the wind, it was strange. Hasn't Danzo been swallowed by you? How could there be another person who would use such a powerful wind escape? To be honest, if an ordinary person enters my stomach, it will be dissolved and poisoned immediately and will emit energy immediately, but he has not responded after he came in. It feels more like a shadow clone being swallowed. Orochimaru was shocked. He already understood Danzo's conspiracy in his heart, and muttered to himself while watching the place where the mist was rising from the head of Wan Shi. It turned out that he wanted to sit on the mountain and watch the tiger fight, and then come out to clean up the mess after me and them both lost. What an old fox. Wind escape vacuum slash. An invisible wind slash broke through the fog and hit Tsunade, but when everyone was worried about Naruto, whose life and death were unknown, they didn't notice the wind slash. Puff. After Tsunade was hit by Feng Dun and made a loud noise, everyone realized that Tsunade had been hit by the attack, and Sakura cried out to the other side. Ah, master. Kai was also silent for a while, looking at Tsunade's direction, and then looking at Jiraiya's direction, only to see a series of fierce attacks from the wind blowing the place to smithereens, leaving only a pool of fresh blood. Lai's blood had already coagulated, so in his opinion, it was no accident that Jay Lai also died. Little Li, promise me, let's rebuild Konoha village together with everyone, and we must become stronger. Xiaoli was still stunned when he saw the master standing up slowly, and when he understood this sentence, tears flowed. Master, no. But it was too late. Kai was breaking through, and the chakra on his body was fully opened, and at this speed, he had already opened 3 doors. Wind done vacuum continuous slash. Several wind blades attacked the Sasukes at high speed, dispelling the surrounding heavy fog, revealing Danzo and the psychic beast under his body, and everyone just jumped away after the first battle. After struggling, Kai burst to the 3rd door and shouted. Gate of life open, towards the peacock. I saw him jumping up and using all the power and cells on his feet. The flames that flew out all hit the wind slash flying towards everyone, and the explosion sounded endlessly. Look, Granny Tsunade is fine. During the fight, someone in the tense crowd suddenly said something like this. Everyone heard it clearly. Sakura turned her head back excitedly and found that Tsunade was blocking the slug in the direction where the mist had dissipated. In front of him, he could not help but run over excitedly and shouted loudly. Master, I knew you weren't dead. At this time, Tsunade slowly opened his eyes and found that he was not dead. He accidentally looked at the slug behind, and the slug also cried and blamed Tsunade. Why, Tsunade-sama, I'm just a psychic beast. For me, everyone who fights with me is my partner and friend, and I can't let my partner die because of me. The slug just looked at Tsunade excitedly, and Sakura's body had already embraced Tsunade's body, and the three were moved to tears. Kai, who was in the air, was distracted when he heard Tsunade's voice, and was hit by several wind blades coming from Danzo. Xiaoli hurriedly looked at the direction where the master fell, and how did Danzo go? He would miss this opportunity and immediately tell the psychic beast on the soles of his feet to open his mouth to inhale the seriously injured Kai. That's it. Nightmare taper. Tsunade looked in that direction, only to realize that the undead Danzo was a nightmare taper, so he shouted in a hoarse voice. Little Lee, don't go there. And Xiao Sakura, who had finished crying in Tsunade's arms, also found out that something was wrong, and turned around and wanted to stop it, but it was too late, and Xiaoli was also sucked in. Sasuke gritted his teeth and looked at Danzo, and wanted to do something, but when he looked at Tsunade and Jiraiya, he found something strange. Tsunade was seriously injured even if he didn't die, and he apart from a pool of fresh blood, there was no trace of his death in Laiyi. In theory, Feng Dun should have cut and torn people, but there was not a single corner of his clothes to be found there. Why is Orochimaru missing? While thinking about it, Sakura shouted loudly, and Sasuke was also looking for traces of Orochimaru, but there was no sign. Danzo naturally took this into account. Although there was some hesitation on his face, he finally decided to put the group first. People are killed. So the two men, Kai and Xiaoli, who were just about to be sucked into their mouths, were blown away by pushing the dream taper and spitting out the wind. In the strong wind, Xiaoli worked hard and grabbed Kai's hand. Kai also retained a trace of consciousness and grabbed Xiaoli, and the two fell down in the strong wind. Sasuke and Neji Shino Ishikamaru were also blown together by this purposeful strong wind. Hinata, who was still looking for Naruto, cried with joy when she found that there was no one on the spike, but the good times didn't last long, and before she could make the next move, she was swept away by the strong wind of the nightmare taper. Haha, we're all together, let's be a stepping stone for my dream of domination. Chapter 276 Nico's appearance. Danzo laughed complacently, and then immediately formed a seal on his hand, and spat out dozens of wind blades that he was proud of to the assembled crowd. Coupled with the strong wind of the nightmare taper, this wind blade is even more capable of doing whatever it wants. The shapeless wind mixed into the strong wind is not only extremely fast, but also forms a powerful turbulent current. Dangerous. Tsunade hurriedly summoned the clone of the slug to protect everyone, and the wind that came in an instant was mixed with the wind blade and cut off the clone of the slug that stepped forward to resist, and then more winds slashed and fell directly like rain. The soil on the ground was swirling around by the wind blades, and the area of the dust and the slug corpses that were constantly being cut off suddenly turned into a spreading sandstorm. If you hit me with such a violent blow, even if someone barely survives. Ha ha ha, no, there should be no survivors. Danzo, who was standing on the nightmare taper, muttered to himself with an evil smile on the corner of his mouth as he watched the burst of fog caused by the explosion in front of him. Suddenly, Danzo's only eye accidentally saw a snake tail swinging softly behind a big rock not far away. Danzo looked over there cautiously and thought, I actually forgot that there was Orochimaru, but just now was a good time for my flaws. Why didn't I make a move, but instead seemed to tempt me to take the bait? What's going on? At this time, the sound of the explosion had ended, and the dust and mist on the ground had shrouded all the people inside. Danzo didn't care about this, because in his eyes, these people were already 100% dead, so he didn't pay much attention to it. The dream taper ran towards Orochimaru. Winds and vacuums wave again and again. Danzo, who got closer and closer, found that things didn't seem as simple as he thought. His face darkened, and the knot on his hand pointed to the suspicious stone. The boulder was hit by several powerful vacuum waves and was instantly torn apart, and the dust that was about to be raised was calmed down by this attack to reveal the contents inside. Danzo looked at what was in front of him, and was even more shocked, only to know that Zongji hurriedly stepped back and looked around nervously, but no matter how much he looked, he couldn't find the enemy's trace and Chakra's reaction. The calm Danzo also frowned rarely, and for a while, a small wind of Vivi gently brushed Danzo and only half of the ground was disturbed. Who is it? Who can break the sturdy skin of 10,000 snakes without leaving any traces? Logically speaking, I know all about Konoha and anyone else. It seems that this person. Danzo, who jumped on the ground to observe, carefully surveyed the snake's tail and found that in addition to the damage caused by his wind escape and the snake's tail that was only slightly scratched by the wind blade, he couldn't help thinking. The nightmare tapir suddenly turned around and roared loudly at the back of Danzo. Being so startled, Danzo knew that the nightmare tapir must have found something, and Danzang finally realized it in his heart. Could it be that the enemy has appeared, just as I want? For a moment, Danzo couldn't believe his eyes. Nico, why did you come out alone? Ha ha ha, I'm glad to see the place, but I'm disappointed. Kakashi and Jongyang have both come out. Seeing that everyone in Tsunade on the other side was safe and sound in the place where they had just bombed, but there was an extra stranger, Danzo was even more afraid of the strength of the enemy. To be able to save everyone in an instant and cut off the iron-like tail of the 10,000 snakes, what an unfathomable strength. Danzo decided to take the initiative to attack before that person appeared, and instructed the nightmare tapir next to him to store his chi, and he himself made a more complicated handprint than before, looking at Tsunade with venomous eyes. Naruto-kun. Hinata found that a teenager was supporting the unconscious Naruto with one hand and Jiraiya who was seriously injured, so he hurried up to help Naruto down, and everyone also found the two injured and came to help put them out. When she got down, Sakura couldn't help exclaiming when she found Jiraiya lying on the ground, but she still slowly probed Jiraiya's body with both hands. Fortunately, although the signs of life are weak, he is still alive. Then he turned his head and shouted at Tsunade who was talking to Neko. Master, Lord Jiraiya is here, still alive, come and have a look. After hearing Sakura's words, Tsunade immediately changed his face, wiped away the tears he was about to shed, and ran away. It's just that the bleeding is too much, the chakra is exhausted, and the rest is not a big problem. I treated it and I will wake up after a while. Tsunade, who pushed aside the crowd, saw Jiraiya lying unconscious on the ground covered in scars, and Tsunade immediately called Slug to help him heal. That Naruto-kun. Hinata looked worriedly at Naruto on the ground and said to everyone. Tsunade helped Jiraiya to a corner, and walked directly to Naruto without saying a word. This child fainted and suffered internal injuries. After I treat Naruto, you should send him to Kakashi's side, and then I will start dealing with that Danzo. Tsunade said to everyone with a resolute expression, and Hinata and Sakura also cooperated with Tsunade to put the cured Naruto aside and take good care of him. By the way, how were they rescued? What about Kakashi and Jongyang? Tsunade suddenly remembered this question, but everyone looked at each other in dismay. Some people said that they had just seen the figure of a boy bringing the two over. After hearing it, Tsunade guessed that it was more likely to be Jongyang. That is. Only Sasuke who didn't look for Jongyang's figure with the crowd's dumbfounded expression was seen by Tsunade who was looking around. He walked to the front and listened to Sasuke hesitatingly looking ahead and muttering to himself. Tsunade felt more and more strange, but at this time, a strong wind swept in. Like everyone else, Tsunade hurriedly blocked the wind with his hands, and everyone also exclaimed, and suddenly became a mess. Tsunade slowly let go of his hand to bite. He shouted loudly. Everyone, don't be disrupted, everyone gathers together. Except for Jiraiya and Naruto, who were not affected by the Yumun tapir gale on the edge, the rest were like Tsunade. Tsunade also struggled to open one eye and squinted to look forward. At this moment, the voice resounding through the valley surrounded everyone's ears, but it was nightmare for Tsunade to hear this voice. Wind escaped the vacuum jade. Ah, everyone, get down. Tsunade naturally knew that the power of this Danzo was dozens of times greater than the power of the previous ones, and it was still a small spherical gas. After being compressed in the mouth, its explosive power was even more amazing. I saw everyone around them lying down, and no one saw that only Tsunade stood up. The slug was naturally able to see clearly beside him, so he shouted anxiously. Tsunade-sama, you can't do this. Chapter 277 One person and one beast didn't have time to continue talking. The vacuum jade that was raging in the wind had already sprayed out, mixed with even more wind, and the vacuum jade inside was as invisible as before, but the attack of incompetent power swept towards everyone. Boom, boom, boom. Tsunade, whose eyes could only be squinted by the wind, suddenly found that all the vacuum jades shot in front of him exploded in midair, which made Tsunade puzzled and asked the slug next to him. Slug, what did you see? That child completely destroyed the vacuum jade. Tsunade suddenly thought of someone in his heart, so he asked. What are the characteristics of that child? Where is he now? There are not many features, but he looks about 15 years old, and he has a huge ancient energy and a strange psychic beast reaction. Although Tsunade didn't know what Zhang Yang experienced in it, but after hearing about 15 years old, he could basically conclude that it was Zhang Yang. Just when Tsunade was about to face the strong wind, an explosion that shattered the sky exploded in front, and instead of the strong wind, an aftermath of the explosion followed. Or things are all under the pressure, even Danzo and Tsunade are no exception. Damn it, who is this person? Danzo, who was lying on the ground, was beaten so helplessly that he was still in front of the enemy, so he wanted to pull off the bandage around his arm and fight to the end with the unknown enemy, and a wave of air passed by. Afterwards, the U-way of the explosion has stabilized, leaving only the dust floating down from the sky. Boy, just let you see this. Danzo stood up and shouted at Zhang Yang in front of him, but before he could finish speaking, Zhang Yang's seal disappeared instantly, and Danzo had just seen clearly that it was the god of thunder, and the pupils of his eyes had not yet had time to enlarge. Zhang Yang he had already reached the front of the regiment to hide, and said indifferently. Thunder escape. I saw Zhang Yang's two dazzling electricity flashing violently around him, and Danzang immediately stabilized his mind and directed the dream taper to exhale, but when Zhang Yang's electricity had reached him, the dream taper seemed to be standing there, as if stunned. Standing still, Danzo was angry and annoyed, but unfortunately it was a foregone conclusion. After Danzang was hit by Zhang Yang's self-created mind release, he was directly shaken and flew out, and the whole person was shaken out of the mountain, and Meng Taper seemed to be very taboo about Zhang Yang, so he ran around Zhang Yang to save Danzang, and witnessed this in situ. Tsunade looked at the young man in front of her with wide eyes in disbelief, and she took a few steps back in disbelief. Tsunade-sama, what's wrong with you? Seeing Tsunade's terrified face, Slug couldn't help but approach Tsunade for fear of her falling and asked. At this time, everyone realized that the strong wind was gone, and they all stood up cautiously, but Naiko saw Zhang Yang in front, and ran up to hug her first. He was so arrogant, which made Tsunade heave a sigh of relief after reacting to grab Naiko. In addition to seeing Jiraiya and Naruto's injured Hinata and Kai, everyone else went to Tsunade to see Zhang Yang, who had just returned, and Tsunade was also worried about a problem at this time, and shouted in the past. Zhang Yang, can you come over? Oh, Tsunade, mother-in-law, I'll be right over here. When he heard Tsunade calling himself, Zhang Yang didn't know who it was. When he turned around, he found out that it was Tsunade who was already a little old. He wanted to call Tsunade for a while, but when he looked at her, he realized that Naruto and the others were all calling him. Granny Tsunade, who was the same age as them, of course shouted like them, and suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. It was almost revealed, if I called Tsunade directly, I, who came out of the hole with no clue, would have to undergo another torture. After seeing Zhang Yang coming over, Tsunade didn't know if it was his own delusion, and found that Zhang Yang now, his face became much more mature, but it's only been a few days, but maybe only Zhang Yang found out about it. The time inside it is many times faster than the time outside, which has a great resonance with Zhang Yang's unique soul and body. I heard Naiko say you all came out, what about Kakashi? Zhang Yang knew she had to ask this first, so he continued. He can't come out for the time being, and you'll see him in a few days. Sakura on the side asked curiously to help Tsunade. Where is he now? Well, in my stomach. The person in front of Jongyang was silent for a moment, and Tsunade couldn't believe it. He threw a questioning look at Naiko, and Naiko smiled happily. Tilda, it's true, Kakashi-senpai is in his stomach. After listening to this, everyone's horrified expressions were similar. Ah, help, don't eat me. Hey, just kidding, haha, although Kakashi-senpai is in my body, it's not eating him, so don't ask for the specifics, the answer will be revealed naturally in a few days. After hearing the smiling Jongyang finished speaking, everyone still had lingering fears about what he said just now, but Tsunade walked up at this time, and Sakura held Tsunade and said, Master. Well, it's okay, I believe him. Will a man-eating guy not eat Naiko by his side? Hearing Tsunade's explanation, everyone calmed down and thought about it carefully, and Sakura still wanted to stop it, and it seemed that there was nothing to worry about. At this time, Neji next to Sakura patted Sakura on the shoulder and looked at Jongyang with white eyes. Road. I also believe him. There are 3 different chakra reactions in his body, and one of them belongs to Senior Kakashi, which proves that he did not lie, and that we were all saved by him. If it weren't for him, we would have been killed by the group. Zhang's attack was torn apart. No matter how you look at it, he was on a united front with us. After a long time, Sakura put down her blocking hand, and Tsunade smiled and extended her hand to Jongyang. At the moment when the 2 hands touched, everyone cheered and shouts of excitement resounded through the valley. Ah, Naruto-kun. Before everyone finished cheering, a scream came from the side of Hinata, who was taking care of Naruto. Everyone hurriedly turned to look back and found that a guard-like person had taken Naruto and Jiraiya away, and Hinata on the ground was also taken away. Injured, when Neji saw this scene, he naturally went up to insist on Hinata's injury, but Shikamaru found out during the chase that the guard had a snake's tail, so he shouted. Everyone, that Orochimaru's clone. This sentence undoubtedly gave everyone a target. He was hanged and beaten by Orochimaru just now. Now that the clone appeared in front of him, he naturally wanted to catch up and punish him, while Jongyang looked over there and said. Chapter 278 Goodbye to the Half-Faced Snake Man. I'm going, I'm not dead yet, this is really 6, that Tsunade, oh no, Granny Tsunade, wait for me for a while. Tsunade nodded and signaled for Jongyang to go quickly, only to see the seal on his hand and then disappear in an instant. Tsunade said in secret surprise on the spot. When did this kid learn Konoha's Flying Thunder God? At the same time, on the other side, Jongyang also appeared in front of the guard in an instant, while Jongyang didn't care too much about the enemy in front of him, but thought complacently. I didn't expect that the chakra on my body would feel very full at once, and my body was as light as a swallow. If this continues, I can walk sideways in this world at a faster speed. Looking at Jongyang in YY, the guard raised his head and looked at him with a smile instead of a smile. Seeing this snake-headed, Jongyang was startled, his eyes widened and he shouted in surprise. It's you. Don't have a bad memory, kid. How could Jongyang forget that he was fleeing in the infinite wine cellar by the tens of thousands of troops commanded by the half-faced snake man in front of him? The expression on his face lost the smile he had just now, and the half-faced snake man spit at Jongyang. Shinzi Road. If you hadn't run away, I'd be able to clean you up sooner or later, but now, I'll be welcome. When Jongyang heard this, he naturally knew that the snake man was afraid of his face and thought that he could bully him at will, but Jongyang's angry mouth slowly lifted up, and he looked calmly at the eyes of Jiraiya and Naruto rushing towards him. The half-faced snake man who came over thought. The labor and management even went back to Danzo just now, and are they afraid of you? Your boss, Orochimaru, was beaten and fled by me and cut off 1,000 snakes. Is it up to you? Jongyang, who has regained his confidence, is no longer afraid of his strength, because in comparison, this Orochimaru's lackey is really nothing. But Zhang Yang suddenly had an idea and decided to learn his moves to fight against him. He thought so in his heart, but his body had already complied, and the sharp blade of the snake man stabbed in an instant. Seeing this quick blow, Zhang Yang sighed. If you don't get exercise and suddenly have more chakra, I'm afraid you may not be able to avoid this threat. It's different now. Zhang Yang seems to have the chance to win. He also learns to turn his hand into a sharp-edged hand and stab at the snake man. When the two attacking hands were staggered, the snake man turned to his side, while Zhang Yang only cut open the snake man's clothes, and his hands also slipped over the greasy body. After evading Zhang Yang's attack, the proud snake man showed a triumphant smile, but he found that he did not attack Zhang Yang, so he looked forward and was shocked. Zhang Yang avoided the attack with a tricky angle, and the prouder smile at the corner of his mouth proves that Zhang Yang is more than enough. The snake man was furious. The foot that turned into a snake's tail suddenly exerted force, and the attack at the end of the crossbow regained its majesty and instantly accelerated its speed, which is also the pride of the snake man. Haha, they seem to be coming soon. I still have to ensure the safety of the two of them. I won't play with you, I'm sorry Tilda. Hearing Zhang Yang's words suddenly, the confidence on the snake man's face was shattered, and a thought popped out of his body. If you don't escape, you will die. Snake people have always lived on this thing similar to the sixth sense. As long as this idea comes up, it must be an omen before death. Snake people panic, and immediately want to stop, and then run away. But it was too late. Zhang Yang kicked away the snake man's hand just like playing with a child. The snake man just opened his mouth in pain. Zhang Yang's eyes were cold, and the black flame in his hand hit the snake man directly. At the moment of being burned, the snake man only left a pair of incredible eyes. Zhang Yang, are you okay? Sakura and Sasuke, who were the first to catch up, saw Zhang Yang, while Sasuke jumped off the tree trunk and walked to Jiraiya and Naruto to check the situation, while Sakura asked Zhang Yang, and Zhang Yang knew it in his heart. At this time, you can't pretend to be very powerful, at least you can't pretend to be strong until Kakashi wakes up and proves his innocence, or else you have to explain or disagree with them, but no matter which one, Zhang Yang doesn't want to try. Zhang Yang, where was the guard just now? He was killed by a mysterious man, and that's how I arrived. Sakura looked at the black mass of Kurozumi and the dagger that fell on the ground with an incredible expression. She couldn't believe that someone could turn a person into ashes in an instant. That person used it. I thought he would kill me too, but I didn't expect that he only killed this person. Zhang Yang explained to Sasuke, who came over and looked at the coke material on the ground, and Sasuke looked at the things on the ground with a shocked expression, unable to speak for a long time, and Sakura saw that something was wrong with Sasuke, and hurriedly stepped forward to ask. Sasuke, what's wrong with you? If you don't hurry back, everyone will be in a hurry. You are here. Did Jiraiya-senpai and Naruto also save you? It seems that things are complete. The people who arrived found Jiraiya and Naruto unconscious on the ground, stepped forward to support them, and then said to the three who were facing Kurozumi. Hey, tell me, what he looks like and how he uses it. Sasuke stood up from the ground at once, grabbed Zhang Yang's clothes and shouted angrily, but everyone didn't know what happened, and Sakura didn't know what happened to Sasuke, and looked at Sasuke blankly, thought. Sasuke, don't do this, Zhang Yang didn't do anything. At this time, Zhang Yang looked at Urzuzi, who was angry, and then looked at Kurozumi on the ground. His head suddenly exploded, and he suddenly patted his head and thought in his heart. NND, I forgot a big thing. Now he doesn't know Itachi is alive, and what I just used is Amaterasu's flame. The people of the Uchiha family have been exterminated, except for Itachi and a few, and hear how many of them can know Amaterasu. Itachi is the only one in NND who can do it, and this guy is a brother-in-law. When he heard the news of his own brother, he was so excited. When I watched Conan before, where was the cleverness used? Alas, what a mistake. But others couldn't see Zhang Yang's thoughts at all. Sasuke became even crazier when he saw that Zhang Yang didn't respond for a long time. Who the hell is that man? Tell me quickly. On the other hand, everyone on the side didn't want to know what happened. They only knew that Sasuke would do drastic things in this way. Holding Zhang Yang's hand. Chapter 279 The Power of Publicity. Sasuke, stop fooling around, let's sit down and talk slowly, okay? After he finished speaking, he was about to separate Sasuke's entangled hands, and Sasuke lowered his face and said word by word. Whoever dares to stop me, I will kill anyone. Sakura saw that the momentum was wrong, and hurriedly stepped forward to stop it, and Sasuke looked at Sakura and said fiercely, as if he did not recognize his 6 relatives. Again, get out of the way. Don't blame me for being rude. Sasuke, how can you talk like this? Xiaoying is with you after all, and we are still alive because of Zhang Yang's salvation, so you forget. Yeah, Tooth is right, and if you dare to hurt Sakura, I will never forgive you. Everyone watched Naruto, who woke up and inserted this sentence, and looked over happily, but Sasuke seemed to be shaken after hearing Naruto's words. At this time, Sakura saw that Sasuke did not have the strong killing intent. He wanted to step forward and pull Sasuke away. But at this time, a vision suddenly occurred. Sasuke opened Sakura with one hand, and a seal was formed in his hand, and then released thunder and lightning in his hand at a speed that could not cover his ears and hit Zhang Yang. Electric Chidori. At that moment, Naruto shouted something, but at this moment, only the huge electric current covered Naruto's cry, and everyone looked at it in surprise. After the electric light flashed in front of Sakura, she realized that Sasuke just now they all deliberately let themselves relax their vigilance, because Sasuke's own strength is not as strong as himself. So if you struggle forcibly, you will definitely be taken away by yourself, and adopting this hard-to-play method is a good time to start. When Sakura reacted, she only saw Zhang Yang's gloomy face, without a trace of fear, as if she was enduring something. When she shouted, Chidori's powerful electric current hit Zhang Yang from the assistant. In an instant, Zhang Yang's whole body overflowed with electric light, and was wrapped into a glittering artwork by Chidori. Everyone's faces were frozen on Zhang Yang, who was constantly being infused with powerful currents by Chidori, and Sakura gave up shouting and could only watch Sasuke continue, because she knew very well that Zhang Yang would not survive under this kind of current. Afterwards, she turned her face to Sasuke with a ferocious face, a complex and helpless look in her eyes. Sakura muttered to herself under the strong electric voice. Sasuke, what did you go through to become like this? Why did you do this? After saying that, he hugged his knees and put his head in his arms, hurting his stomach, and everyone didn't understand, but they found that Naruto next to him was looking at Sasuke with gnashing teeth, and it wasn't Naruto who cared about it. Reaction. It was the spiral pills that were constantly gathering in Naruto's hands. Because Naruto was seriously injured, Naruto was not able to gather the spiral pills so quickly. Naruto, don't. Everyone was closer to Naruto, and they shouted and stopped, but Hinata, who was closer to Naruto, saw the hatred and anger in Naruto's heart, so he immediately got up and ran to Naruto and opened his hands, while Ning. The next time, he shouted in shock. Hinata, what are you doing? Dangerous. No, Naruto, you know that if you kill Sasuke with a spiral pill like this, you will live in guilt for the rest of your life. I will not allow you to kill yourself. Naruto looked at Hinata, who was blocking his eyes. Suddenly his head was heavy, his eyes darkened, and he fell directly, and Hinata saw this scene and immediately ran forward to support Naruto, for fear that something would happen to him. And everyone was a little relieved. Tsuneji ran up immediately, helped Naruto to lie down, squatted down and picked up his wrist and started to determine what happened to Naruto. However, after another wave of unresolved issues, something happened on Sasuke's side again. This time everyone didn't say anything. They only looked at Sasuke with their eyes and expressions that were more exaggerated than before, while Hinata, who was waiting on the side, saw everyone. Expression, so he looked back. Ah, Zhang Yangjun. Hinata shouted out, making the frozen air even more frozen, because Zhang Yang swallowed Sasuke's Chidori little by little. Sakura watched Zhang Yang absorb Sasuke's Chidori with an expressionless expression. Bird, and Sasuke's disdainful face and hideous expression instantly vanished, leaving only his wide-open mouth and unbelievable eyes coupled with repeated steps back in response to Zhang Yang. What? Wasn't it hanging just now? 2 pillars. After Zhang Yang swallowed the last bit, Chidori looked at Sasuke with a gloomy expression and said viciously, then slowly walked over to the retreating Sasuke, pressing step by step, walking as he walked. NND, I'll be angry with you when I come here. If you don't clean up with you, you're not finished, right? The labor and management don't want to have the same knowledge as you, so I'll tell you plainly. For a dangling like you, the labor and management will kill you. Hundreds. Seeing the rhetoric that seemed to be very condescending, Sasuke stopped, and then resumed the violent expression packed just now to Zhang Yang. Not retreating but advancing, Zhang Yang watched Urzuzi approaching like a threat, and the corners of his mouth also twitched. A trace of untraceable contempt. If you don't tell me today, then go to hell. Then Sasuke folded his hands together, then separated and lined up his handprints while rushing to the side. Ninjutsu Shadow Clone Technique. Zhang Yang laughed instead of being angry, because just now he taught himself another ninjutsu, which was also the one he wanted to learn the most. For the sake of you being a child, I won't hit you and let you make 3 moves, but if you want to entangle you after the 3 moves, don't blame me for being merciless. After Zhang Yang finished speaking, there was a killing intent in his eyes, and it was not only Sasuke who felt this killing intent, but also Sakura on the side. Bastard. What a joke. Sasuke saw the unfathomable child in front of him. Although the murderous intent made him shudder, but since he had made a decision, he couldn't back down. Sakura shivered and stopped after feeling the murderous aura. Sasuke, don't. You will really die. And Sasuke, with several avatars, doesn't care about other people's words. He is about to get close to Zhang Yang, and then several avatars around him start to make exactly the same seal. Zhang Yang has long seen Sasuke's intentions, but still stands on the original smiling mockingly at him. Electric Chidori. 4 unanimous voices rang out around Zhang Yang, and the galloping electric current arrived at Zhang Yang's side first, only to see that the 2 hands in front of him caught the attacking Chidori, while the Chidori behind him directly and forcibly hit him. This move is several times more powerful than the Chidori just now, and several Chidori are added together. At this time, the electric light swept away from the sky, and the momentum was so great that it stunned all the birds in the forest. And the bird that flew over Sasuke was shot down by the electric current. Chapter 280 Resolved Conflict. What is that? Tsunade looked at the thunder light that was soaring to the sky over there. His heart tightened, and he always felt that something was going to happen, but Tsunade, who had no energy left to go, could only be anxious, and the slug reported to Tsunade. Sir Tsunade, it's not good. Sasuke and Zhang Yang are fighting over there. What? After being told by the slug, Tsunade turned pale in shock. He originally thought that he would encounter some difficulties there, but he did not expect it to be an infighting, which made Tsunade very baffled, and then continued to ask. Then how did you know? Slugs. Jiraiya-sama and Naruto I both have clones to treat them, have you forgotten? At this time, Tsunade had an epiphany. He didn't expect to forget about the slug's clone, and then he didn't think much about continuing to ask. Then how are they doing now? Why don't the people around them stop them? Now Zhang Yang has been avoiding Sasuke's attack. It seems that there is nothing serious, and everyone was paralyzed by the current just now. Except for Zhang Yang and Sasuke who were fighting each other, the rest of the people couldn't move, including my clone. After Tsunade heard this, he lowered his brows and looked nervously over there, muttering to himself while trying to find a way. Don't let anything happen. But things didn't work out as expected. Zhang Yang, who took over Sasuke Chidori, said sarcastically in the electric shock. The first move. Really? How about trying this? Unexpectedly, Sasuke was not provoked by Zhang Yang's words, but smiled evilly. Zhang Yang didn't know what the hell this kid was up to, but he was more than enough to deal with the current Sasuke, and he looked at him provocatively. Yo, you know, there's no difference between someone who speaks harshly and a salted fish. Fire escape how fireball technique. Sasuke's throat containing chakra erupted out of his mouth at once. A fireball suddenly covered Jongyang, who had no time to escape. Sasuke immediately stopped and jumped away, followed by an explosion. All the clones around Sasuke were swallowed up in the burning flames. Inside the fireball, the slowly conscious people looked at the scene in front of them, thinking that Sasuke must be crazy. Sakura shouted from the side. Why did Jongyang have to be killed? Did he do something wrong? Looking at the flaming fireball in front of him, only Sasuke showed a satisfied and disappointed smile. Hearing Sakura's shout, Sasuke paused. I just do what I think is right. He knows too much. I can't leave this hidden scourge. At this time, the burning fireball was instantly extinguished, and everyone also found the intact Jongyang looking at Sasuke with a harmless face, while Sasuke regained the shock, and Jongyang walked slowly past. Boy, there is one more trick. If you don't stop, you will be abolished by me. Believe it or not. After speaking, Jongyang's eyes showed a fierce look, and Sasuke also insisted on shouting with a stubborn temper that several cows couldn't pull back. Who the hell are you? As the saying goes, it's not too late for a gentleman to pretend to be forceful. If you keep pretending to be forceful like this, don't blame me for slapping your face. Urzuzi. Sasuke naturally didn't listen to Jongyang's incomprehensible nonsense, and continued to seal the road with his hands. Fire escape dragon fire technique. I saw a flame like a ferocious fire dragon raging in the direction of Jongyang, and Jongyang has naturally seen the method of sealing Sasuke's dragon fire technique, and also cured his body. Fire escape dragon fire technique. A fire dragon larger than Sasuke's fire dragon sprang out, and there were black flames of different weights around it. Sasuke was shocked and suddenly found that the black flame was Amaterasu. It's you. As soon as the words fell, the fire dragons of the two collided. Sasuke's little dragon was instantly defeated by Jongyang, the black-spotted fire dragon with obvious advantages, and flew towards Sasuke. Muttered to himself. I didn't expect that someone would be able to copy someone else's ninjutsu right away. Except for Kakashi-senpai, even some outstanding geniuses can't do it. Seeing that the situation was wrong, Sakura immediately ran over and pushed Sasuke away, while Jongyang also reduced the power of this technique, and the surrounding black flames were only incorporeal shadows and had no physical damage, but they would hurt even if they were hit. Long time. Jongyang, who originally just wanted to teach Urzuzi a lesson, didn't expect Sakura to push Sasuke away, and cursed in his heart. A fool. Looking at Sakura who pushed herself away, Sasuke's tears of remorse finally flowed out, and desperately shouted at Sakura who was close at hand in front of dragon fire. No. Sakura is also defending her body to resist the next blow. She also knows that Jongyang's strength is too terrible. If Sasuke takes this move unprepared, I am afraid that the fallen Sasuke will never be able to stand up again. Everyone's eyes widened as they watched everything happen, while Hinata's people stretched out their hands as if trying to pull Sakura back. Boom. There was another huge explosion. Although Jongyang relaxed a lot, the power that came out was still very large. It was much louder and more shocking than the Chidori just now. Tsunade, who was worried, found a huge explosion. The explosion, hurriedly asked the slug next to him. How could this be? What are they doing now? Sasuke was defeated by Jongyang's dragon fire technique. When he was about to fight Commander, Sakura stood up and pushed Sasuke away to block the blow. Tsunade suddenly felt haggard. Is Konoha really not suitable for her to take care of? But it didn't take long for him to be depressed, and the slug who was comforting Tsunade hurriedly said, Sir Tsunade, things have turned around. On the side, Tsunade, who was secretly depressed, was looking at the ninjas who were injured for Konoha in front of him. Hearing the slug's tone of surprise, he seemed to have thought of something, and hurriedly turned his head and asked. What a turnaround. Sakura is fine. At this moment, everyone also breathed a sigh of relief in their hearts. In this part of the forest, the air solidified with a beautiful job atmosphere. Sasuke opened his mouth wide to see Jongyang, who was blocking Xiao Sakura, disperse the black flames in front of him, and Xiao Sakura also opened his eyes and couldn't help but marvel at the boy who was the same age as him. Your speed, and this flame, why? After the flames were put away, Jongyang turned his head and smiled freely and joked to Sakura, who was full of fear in his eyes. I can't say it now, I'll say it later, haha, I'm going to silence you Tilda. Then Jongyang put on a funny face and said to Xiaoying and everyone. At this time, Xiaoying couldn't help laughing, and everyone laughed under the infection of Xiaoying. Sasuke was sitting on the ground at a loss, but Sasuke re-examined this person Jongyang, thinking in his heart.